Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1350 of the War News stream. And we have very big and very shocking news tonight that has people in disbelief. But Belgium says they've been invaded by Russian drones, which are now triggering NATO Article 4. We've also seen that Putin has ordered major Russian nuclear tests today, and also Ukraine launched major attacks near Moscow, knocking out some electrical infrastructure right outside the capital city. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as we have been able to hear of significant developments, most particularly in Europe and from around the world today, as we have heard that the nation of Belgium, or specifically the Kingdom of Belgium, has declared that they have been invaded by Russian drones and have invoked Article 4, with a meeting to be held incredibly soon with the NATO partners about the incursion by the Russian Federation's drones into Belgian airspace. This is, of course, one of the multiple times so far that we've seen an Article 4 invocation over a Russian airspace provocation or incursion into the airspace of a NATO state. However, this is the first time that we've seen a Western European nation conduct such an Article 4 invocation at this point. We have also been able to hear that simultaneously unidentified drones, most likely Russian, have also been spotted over the area of the Hannover International Airport near Hannover, Germany, which has led to the closure of the airport over the past several hours. At the same time, the Russian Federation appears to be getting itself into the absolute extreme throes of escalation whenever possible, and are now announcing that they'll be conducting full-fledged nuclear tests, and will also be threatening the state of Ukraine with possible nuclear holocaust for the larger part, if they can. And also, Matthew, I do not know why you're so quiet. You're even quiet in my headset, so it might be that the microphone's too far away, possibly. I'm not really sure. But Nevertheless, we have also been able to hear at the same time that the Russian Federation has once again been dealt some very significant hits so far by the state of Ukraine, with the state of Ukraine hitting the electrical substation and also the significant oil refinery at Volgograd, with explosions also being reported inside of Rostov-on-Don and several other cities throughout the Russian Federation. Norway is also going to be strengthening its borders against the Russian Federation, while at the same time we have also been able to hear of significant developments, at least at this moment, inside of Russia in the terms of money that the Russian government has left available, as the Russian government has now announced that they'll be closing an entire cosmodrome in the eastern area of the country and cutting out off the power meter due to their ability to no longer pay the bill even for electricity at the cosmodrome, which has seen very limited usage since the beginning of the war. At the same time, we have also seen that the state of Ukraine has been able to hold the lines today against the Russian Federation and has inflicted somewhat significant losses. However, the Russians are making small gains inside of Pokrovsk, block by block, which is leading some people to be concerned about the frontline situation within that area. Outside of the direction of Pokrovsk, however, the Ukrainian armed forces are generally holding the line and still inflicting fairly significant casualties onto the Russian Federation's armed forces. While that is going on, we have also been able to hear that multiple of Russia's largest oil trading partners are still continuing to decrease the amount of purchase orders and future purchase orders that they have with the Russian Federation, and are sourcing their oil from elsewhere, more particularly the Middle East. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia appears to be using the influx of cash to pursue the possibility of purchasing F-35 Lightnings from the United States of America, as the Saudi Arabians have approached the United States today with the proposal of buying nearly 3 dozen F-35 Lightnings for the Royal Saudi Air Force. And at the exact same time, we have also heard that the United States of America today has responded to Russia's announcement of full-scale nuclear tests, by the president also announcing in turn that the United States of America will also be conducting its own full-scale nuclear tests into the future, and we also have already seen the launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile, a Minuteman III, from Vandenberg Space Force Base in Southern California, just north of Los Angeles. We have also seen that the United States of America has continued its actions against Venezuela, at least within the Eastern Caribbean, with a significant strike today once again happening against another alleged piracy vessel engaged in the act of transporting illegal contraband, while at the same time, U.S. forces are continuing to build up in the area in somewhat larger numbers and strength, and are still preparing and waiting for the strikes to occur at some point in the future. We are getting to see if we can fix Matthew's audio here really quickly. And Matthew, talk really quickly.
So it's all good on my end, by the way. I'm checking everything. My levels are good, so it's something probably happening in OBS or something. So take a look real quick and see if you can bump me up a tad.
I bumped you up a little bit, so hopefully that fixes it, but I can just hear it in my headset, which has nothing to do with that, and it's still kind of quiet on my headset's end, so it might just generally be quiet, and I actually have you bumped up louder than normal on my headset's end. But beyond that, we have a lot of major and significant news outside the technical difficulties to be able to cover tonight, and we are going to be making sure to cover it in each and every single piece of detail that we have tonight, and starting from our largest stories first, and then working through significance over the course of the day, on down into the smaller stories throughout the course of the night. And so moving us directly into our largest story of the day, we are going to be moving into the Kingdom of Belgium, which has made it on this news several times before, not for any particular reason domestically inside of Belgium, but because of their support for the state of Ukraine in terms of arms and equipment. Today, we have been able to see that the Kingdom of Belgium has now made major news on this channel because of the drone violations that have been occurring inside of their country over the past several days. The first report that we made on this channel was our first return to streaming on Sunday, where we were able to report that several unidentified drones have been spotted over the Kleine Brogel Air Base within northern Belgium, which not only houses an air squadron of the Belgian Air Force, which uses F-16AMs, but also houses the United States Air Force's B-61 tactical nuclear weapons. These drones were then lost as they left the area of the airspace of the airfield, and then either disappeared into the Netherlands or elsewhere into Belgium. Since then, we have been able to hear of other drone incursions that have occurred around the airspace of Belgium, including significant airports near Brussels and other critical infrastructure sites inside of the country. This has led today, for the first time ever, for the Belgians to officially state that the drones are believed to be Russian. According to the Belgian security services, they now believe Russia is behind the recent drone incursions over civil airports and military bases. Sources say Moscow is targeting Belgium over its role in handling frozen Russian assets in Euroclear. No responsible doubt, officials say. And that appears to be, at the moment, the first official declaration by really any European government at this point that any such drone incursions that have been conducted so far are, as a matter of fact, Russian. The Kingdom of Denmark has never declared that the drones that flew over their airspace were Russian. They did state that they appeared to have been from some sort of a foreign state actor, but never went as far as stating that they were Russian. However, they did invoke Article 4 over the issue, but over the issue of airspace sovereignty, not over the issue of Russian airspace violations. Estonia was the only country so far that has directly invoked Article 4 over a Russian airspace violation, which is when 4 MiG-31Ks skimmed through the northern airspace of Estonia, just several miles from the capital of Tallinn, provoking a significant response from the Estonian government and the invocation of Article 4 over the only incident of a Russian airspace violation seen so far, at least outside of the Polish incident, which largely started off the whole sequence of events several months ago. Outside of that, of course, we do have to make the honorary mention of Poland, which was the first country to ever invoke Article 4, at least throughout the entirety of the NATO alliance so far, after about 24 drones, and we believe a missile, entered Polish airspace during a Ukrainian drone attack, with some of these drones flying incredibly far into the country, over 100 miles in several instances. That was the first time that we had ever seen a Article 4 invocation, at least in the NATO alliance, and particularly over a Russian airspace violation. Belgium is now the third country to do so, and Belgium is also the first country to do it over the drones that have been flying in that were not a part of a Russian attack on Ukraine. This is the first time ever that we've seen these drone incursions, which have become a fairly normal sight in Europe, ever be stated and identified by a state or a state government as an actual Russian drone violation. This is a fairly significant move by the Belgians, and we have also been able to hear that they are invoking Article 4 at the moment in response to this, and repeated drone overflights have raised serious concerns in Brussels, according to the local media reports in the capital. And Article 4 of the NATO treaty provides for consultations among member states whenever a country feels its territorial integrity or security is threatened. Earlier, during a massive Russian drone attack on Ukraine on September 10th, the Polish request to activate Article 4 followed after multiple Shahed drones entered their airspace. This is going to be a fairly significant sort of a move, at least for the fact that this is the first time a Western European state has ever invoked Article 4 so far in the war in Ukraine. Every single one of the Article 4 invocations that we've seen so far, including Poland, Estonia, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Lithuania, as well as Romania, have all been inside of Eastern Europe and pretty much directly along the NATO frontier. This is the first time that we've ever seen a country, generally Belgium, within Western Europe and nowhere within Central Europe like Denmark, ever declared that there's been a Russian airspace violation, for one, and two, is the first time that this has ever happened inside of Western Europe. We do not know what's going to be coming out of this Article 4 invocation. We generally do understand, based off the historical precedent of the last invocations, that not a lot is expected to come out of this. There will most likely be a meeting amongst the other members. It will be generally covered that the airspace was violated, and these drones do appear to be Russian, but we are not expecting much more to come out of it rather than that. However, this is once again another country that's being added onto the list, and on top of that, we also know that the situation, at least internally inside of Belgium, is one that is starting to enter a fever pitch, at least concerning these drone incursions. The Belgians have given the authority for their armed forces to engage and shoot down the drones when sighted. So far, we haven't seen that happen yet. That order was given to them on, about 48 hours ago, and we have not seen any of the drones shot down yet, and there's been a drone incursion since then, about 4 hours after that order was issued. We did not hear any reports of those drones being shot down. We do not know if the drones will be shot down if they reappear again. But it does appear that Belgium is going to be taking significant efforts and strides to try and completely halt or stop the drone incursions that the Russian Federation is conducting inside of their airspace, and the significant amount of national security risks, and not only that, the significant amount of economic damage that these drones are causing to Belgian skies. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this at the moment, at least with the ongoing situation with the drone incursions inside of Belgium, or better yet, before we even get to answering that question, over Europe in general? Because while the Belgians have been dealing with this ongoing drone incursion inside of their country, we have also heard that the Germans are dealing with another drone incursion inside of the central area of the Federal Republic of Germany. Just north of Hannover, at the Hannover International Airport, several drones have been spotted, which has been causing flights to be diverted temporarily, with the airport being closed. This is once again another drone incursion, as we have seen multiple times that drone spottings around the area of the Munich International Airport did lead to the closure of the airport and the diverting of flights for multiple hours on end, as the drones continue to cause massive economic disruptions for the Federal Republic of Germany and its airspace wherever these aircraft showed up. And so, Matthew, with that in mind, what are people thinking about these drone incursions, and what are people thinking NATO should do about them, considering that an Article 4 invocation is on the way and a meeting will be held incredibly soon about this very matter for the umpteenth time?
All right, so it does look like Belgium is taking this extremely seriously, because Belgium, we did see last night, they closed their airspace. The entire airspace of Belgium was closed because these drones were invading the airspace near multiple different airports in Belgium, and also near military installations in the country as well. So Belgium was on very high alert last night. We actually covered that somewhat on the stream last night, but today we're seeing that Belgium is preparing to invoke NATO Article 4, which is a consultation with the allies over these drone incursions, and they've even gone a step further by admitting that they believe it was Russian drones that invaded their airspace, and they say there's no reasonable doubt left that it is indeed Russia. So that's a ballsy move, because so far all the other NATO countries have generally sort of shied away from saying it was directly Russia. We've known that most likely it is Russia, but Belgium's actually admitting to it. So that's a big move. And what are your thoughts? 79% said NATO should simply destroy the drones and leave it at that, while 14% said NATO should invoke Article 5, and 4% said NATO should simply investigate and then report their findings. So I will say this. Me personally, the first step, logically, is to defend NATO airspace. Right now, they are letting drones, most likely Russian, fly over several different NATO countries' airspaces, and nobody is doing a damn thing about it. That is a disgrace, in my opinion. We've been saying that for a long time, and now Belgium is admitting it's Russian, and that's very clearly a violation of Belgian airspace. So what else should they do other than simply shoot them down? Belgium already gave the permission a couple of days ago, and now we're seeing that they're still not shooting them down. So I don't know why they're hesitating. It's really a mystery why they're hesitating at this point. Maybe the U.S. is instructing them not to shoot the Russian drones down. Whatever the case is, it seems like a dereliction of duty in my personal opinion. But I will also say this as well. I don't think Article 5 should be invoked just yet, because right now it's simply recon flights. These Russian drones are performing recon flights and disruption flights near airports, but so far it's not an attack on the country of Belgium. So I don't think Article 5 is warranted, because Article 5 would essentially mean going to direct war with Russia, and that's a big step to take. So I think we should hold off on that, but simply start by shooting down the drones. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I would generally be of the opinion that these drones should be destroyed for the amount of risk and threat that they are posing to NATO airspace, not only for national security reasons, but also for public safety reasons. But at the same time, I would also have to agree with Enforcer Matt that this should not be an invocation of Article 5. These are not armed attacks that are happening at the moment. These are airspace violations, and those are generally completely different ballparks that we would be playing in. If the Russians were conducting armed attacks on NATO, that's obviously an invocation of Article 5. There's no question about it. However, none of these have ended up becoming armed attacks yet, or have been armed at all. So for that reason, we cannot say that they are conducting an armed attack. They are openly violating our airspace, and for that matter, we have the right as collective nations in NATO to shoot down these drones whenever they violate our collective airspaces. However, at the same time, that does not mean that the Russians have attacked us where we're going to go to war. There's also a very important thing to remember here, folks, that once we start a war, that's a box that really can't be closed, and it's a Pandora's box that we may not want to open. Because if we force ourselves into a war with the Russian Federation prematurely, and there was a ability for us to not do that just yet, we could see that we could get ourselves into a situation where Russia won't back down, we can't back down, and then that could turn into a nuclear exchange at some point in the future. Either a tactical one or a full-blown strategic one. And that's not really an incredibly good scenario for us or for them. But at the same time, I would have to say NATO has to shoot these drones down. We have not heard of a single one of these drones being shot down yet by anyone. Whether it's Poland, whether it's Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, the United Kingdom, the Republic of Ireland, that's not even a NATO member, Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, so on and so forth. We haven't seen a single one shoot down a single drone, and that needs to change. They need to start shooting down these incoming Russian drones. We cannot allow these to fly through the airspace. There are a million reasons why. One, these can kill people. It easily so. Did y'all see that crash that happened in Louisville, Kentucky, just a day ago with that MD-11? That will happen if one of these drones gets sucked into a jet engine on a jet aircraft that's on takeoff. If they do not happen to see one of these drones someday, and they're flying over, say, again, like the Hannover International Airport, let's go to the Hannover International Airport and let's play out that incident. So one of these drones is flying right around here, where one of these aircraft are about to be taking off, somewhere down the runway at a very low altitude. That aircraft, when it rotates, that jet engine is going to suck that drone straight in. That drone is going to shred the turbojet right at takeoff, right at a critical moment, and that aircraft is going to immediately lose about half of its power, or half of its thrust. That aircraft is then going to go careening off of that airfield and into a field somewhere right outside of the airstrip. That could not only kill everyone on board a passenger airliner if that happens, that could kill a whole bunch of people in the surrounding towns that aircraft might end up crashing in. That is something that we do not want to have happen at all. The incident in Louisville appears to be some sort of a freak occurrence and a great misfortune. We don't want a great misfortune and a freak occurrence to happen because of our own incompetence and negligence in securing our skies for the safety of our people. We don't want that to happen. And not only that, not only for the matter of public safety, but also for the matter of national security. If we go over here really quickly to the southern end of Germany, and we go down here to the city of Kaiserslautern, and right out here, this is the Ramstein Air Base. World famous. Everyone knows of this air base. And this air base is home to a large part of the U.S. Strategic Airlift Command, or at least what it is in the modern day, and also another large part of the United States Air Force. As a matter of fact, it's home to the entire upper command of the United States 3rd Air Force, which is permanently stationed inside of Europe. Now, if a drone flies over here, not only can they figure out exactly what forces are present here, they can also figure out what aircraft are present here at that moment. And in the future, if we allow these kinds of incursions to continue, those drones might be laden with bombs next time around, and this could end up becoming the next Operation Spiderweb, and we quite literally watched them do the practice runs for it about a couple of dozen times over before they ended up pulling it off. That is a major national security risk for the United States and our defense collectively around the world, and also the defense of our allies, as the very same thing can happen to any of them at any of the air bases, military installations, and army fields that they're operating anywhere in Europe. That is a huge risk that we cannot afford. It's a huge risk on top of that to continue to let these happen, because this is causing a lot of economic damage. That's the third element that these drones are causing right now that would need to have them shot down. Not only are they risking people's lives and our national security, they're risking our money. Y'all already think that groceries are expensive right now, and I'd agree with y'all. They're quite expensive. And I'm sure many people in Europe also know that as well, that the prices are rising over there. It's just generally a sign of the international economy these days. But what happens when all kinds of air logistics, which are incredibly important for extremely perishable goods, are constantly postponed by hours because these aircraft are having to go into holding patterns over an airfield? Those aircraft are burning fuel they weren't expected to burn, which costs millions of dollars for every single aircraft. And on top of that, those goods may spoil quicker or may spoil before they can even get to where they're supposed to be. That is causing untold millions in damage for each aircraft that's being diverted, each aircraft that's having to go into a holding pattern, and all the citizens on passenger airlines that are also on these holding patterns are having to be diverted. Those people might be missing their next day at work. they might be missing another day of pay. This is ending up causing collectively tens of millions of dollars of damage every single time one of these drones shows up somewhere. So not only for the fact that they are causing issues for national security, they are causing issues for the safety of the public here in NATO, and also for the fact that they're causing economic damage, these drones must be shot down. There is no reason that they should be ignored and allowed to continue to conduct these such actions. They must be shot down. It is the only logical sort of conclusion that we can make. And not only that, we gain benefits from shooting these drones down. If we shoot them down, the Russians are going to start learning that we don't play this game. As a matter of fact, we might end up turning that around on the Russians and maybe doing something a little similar to them, at least as far as reconnaissance flights are conducted. We may even start to harass them a little bit more to get the idea across that we're not going to play this kind of a game. But the principle of the matter is clear. These drones shouldn't be flying through the airspace because it's ours and we didn't allow them to be there, and they're not there, and they're not ours. And then for all the other reasons that I've already mentioned, they have to be shot down. And I hope that NATO moves to that, and we see that one of these drones is shot down here incredibly soon, hopefully within the next week. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And it also appears, folks, that today we are having a whole other problem in its own right, in its own sense, beyond the fact of the airspace violations that the Russian Federation is endlessly conducting at this point inside of NATO's airspace. But before we move on from that, and into that other major bombshell piece of news for the day, which we already have in the title here, we do have a lot of people talking about why in the world no NATO state has yet to shoot down a Russian drone. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so this is more of a direct question here to ask the big question, and many people are very sort of angry about it at this point. Why do you suspect that NATO still refuses to shoot down these foreign drones in their airspace? That's the big golden question right now. Why is that not happening? And 46% said nobody wants to be the first, while 23% said NATO is simply confused and scared, and 20% said the USA is probably refusing to let NATO shoot them down. So the one thing here, now NATO they have to generally agree on things before they do it, but one thing they don't have to do is if they're trying to defend a sovereign country's airspace, like let's say a drone invades Belgium's airspace, Belgium does not have to go to NATO and say, could we please protect our airspace? They don't have to do that. They can simply shoot it down, and that's the end of the story. It's Belgium's airspace, and they can protect it how they deem fit. So I would generally say I'm with the 45%. I don't think anybody wants to be the first. I think people are very scared that if they shoot down one of these Russian drones, then Russia might retaliate in a much stronger way and perhaps go to war with that country that decided to shoot down the drone. But me personally, I think that's pretty cowardly. If that's truly what they're thinking, I think that's a cowardly route to take, and they should just do it and protect their airspace. Simply shoot the thing down, because these things could easily be armed, which could be much, much worse than a mere recon drone. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I would believe that has to be the only reason that we can come up with. It seems like the only one that would make any sort of logical sense as to why they just wouldn't shoot them down. But at the same time, I got to be honest with y'all, that is extremely cowardly. To be scared of the Russians that badly that you're scared to shoot down their drones when they're violating your airspace and are possibly putting your own citizens in danger, damaging your economy, and also putting your national security at risk. To be that scared of shooting them down, that would be extreme cowardice, in my opinion. Maybe that might be the case, because, a lot of people are always scared to make that call, but they got to make the call. Like, that they really don't have an option here. People are going to end up getting killed here in the future if we don't make this call. And then there's going to be blood on these people's hands and these governments. Like, for example, if there is ever going to be a commercial airliner that sucks one of these jets up into its engine and goes down because of that and crashes, and hundreds of people die from that, those hundreds of people, they're not going to be, the blood's going to be on the Russians' hands to a degree, but it's also going to be in the hands of whoever's in charge of Denmark, Germany, Belgium, Poland, and so on, that decided to not make that call to shoot down those drones before they were able to pull off such an action like that. That's who really is going to be at fault there, from the gross negligence that had to permeate for months for such a thing to happen. So they need to get to ordering these drones to be shot down. There's really no other way to go about this at the moment. And I also saw someone in the chat
Also, by the way, before we move on from that topic real quick, it's almost comparable to, like children. When children get in a little like play fight or something like that, and one of the kids gets like smacked by the other one or something like that, and then they run off going, "Mama, mama, he smacked me, he smacked me." That's kind of what these countries are doing right now. Like, for example, Belgium. Belgium is about to declare Article 4, which entitles them to a NATO consultation. So Belgium just got smacked by Russia, with Russia violating Belgian airspace, and now Belgium, instead of defending their own airspace, they're running off to NATO and doing a consultation to ask permission to defend their own country. I'm not even really sure. Like, I'm not really sure how they can do that and still like feel like they're still in charge of their own airspace at that point, because it's embarrassing. Actually, to me, it seems embarrassing that they're having to go ask NATO for permission to defend their own country. That seems a bit weird.
Yeah, I would have to say it is quite weird. They ought to just be shooting them down. I mean, like, and even still, if they shoot them down and they're scared that they don't have the approval of the United States, well, hell, just do what the Israelis did. Shoot it down and then ask for forgiveness later. And then if they demand it, just go, "Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't mean to do that." And then just brush it on and then move on. I mean, the message will be sent that you just won't do that again anyways. Even if you go, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to shoot it down." They still won't do it again because you shot one down anyways. And it's not like these things are cheap, I'm supposing. They are probably fairly expensive drones, probably with a decent amount of optic, sensory, and imagery systems on board that are fairly expensive. So if the Russians lost one, they probably wouldn't want to lose a second one.
Yeah, I would imagine so. So, I mean, and also, is Russia truly going to start World War III over a NATO country defending its airspace? Me personally, I don't think so. Because what is Russia going to do? Launch a nuke at that country? They wouldn't even have an argument. And also, I suspect that Russia probably wouldn't even acknowledge that it was their drone in the first place. Russia would probably try to pretend like it wasn't even theirs, because they know the implications of that. If they admit that that was one of their drones flying over a NATO country, then they're basically admitting to starting a confrontation. So they're not going to do that. So I don't think anything would happen if these drones got shot down personally. I think it would be pretty much a non-starter. But what would happen, though, is it would send a message to Putin and let him know that NATO is not spineless and they will act if confronted, which is the message they need to send. And right now they're not sending it.
Yeah, I would agree. That would 100% be the position they should be taking. And I also see some people saying this in the chat, and I have to make a counter here, because some people are saying in the chat, "Oh, well, this is an absolutely ridiculous take to shoot down these drones. NATO is an adult. We're just letting this go by because we have satellites over Russia and this and that." Let me ask you this: if someone came up to you on the street, you're sitting on a park bench somewhere, and they put a gun up to your head, are you going to sit there and go, "I'm an adult, I'm not going to react, and I'm sure it's not even loaded"? Hell no! You're going to kick that guy in the nuts. You're going to run. Like, you're going to do something. I mean, you're not going to sit there and do nothing. This is the same thing. Every single one of these drones is a gun up to the country's head that this drone is flying over. Do we know if it has a bomb on it? We don't. We have no clue if any of these are armed with a bomb. They could all be armed with bombs. Do we know it's going to cause any damage? We don't. This thing could end up being sucked up in the airliner's jet engine and kill hundreds of people. We have no clue. Do we know what is going to be flying over? Absolutely no clue. This thing could fly over a sensitive military base and gather critical information, or it could fly over a critical military base and kill the commander of EUCOM. We have no clue. We have no clue what these things could do. And that is not being an adult, sitting here letting such a reckless action continue to permeate and exist in our skies. This is complete negligence and incompetence at this point. They have to be responded to. If we were sitting here and we had this in a different scenario right now, and this was September 11th of 2001, and you said that there was any kind of a flying object in the skies of America after that attack, and we didn't know who was flying it, where it was going, and what it was doing, the orders would have been given to have that aircraft shot down. They almost were given that day, and that's because we don't know what these flying aircraft that are unaccounted for, and we can't really get an answer of what they're doing. They are huge threats of any type, even if they're a small drone like that. Look at the kind of damage that Ukraine is able to pull off with small drones in Russia. These things can cause untold amounts of damage. We cannot let them go around like this. If this was any other period in history, the answer would be clear, and we would shoot these things down, and that would be the end of the day.
And something else that's also concerning that we really haven't touched on yet is if these are truly Russian drones, and Belgium is saying that they are Russian, they're saying there's no reasonable doubt left in their minds that these are indeed Russian drones flying over their airspace. Look at the ability that Russia has to deploy drones over so many different NATO countries. That's concerning. They apparently have the ability to either send ships out and right off the coast of these countries and start launching these large recon drones right into pretty much every NATO country within the area of the sea and the ocean, which is very concerning. And that's something there that in a war could be devastating, because imagine if those drones were equipped with weapons. That's going to be something there that NATO's not really equipped to handle right now, because they're not even able to handle the recon drones they're currently flying over. So imagine if they were armed with weapons. That would be devastating.
That would be devastating, extremely devastating. And just for the fact we don't know who these people's drones are, and they don't have approval to fly them. We know they're Russian, but they don't have approval to have them in our airspace. That is what's causing the major risk, the untold of what they're actually doing and what they are. Because at this point, folks, another thing that has to be made clear is that, at least according to the information provided to the public, nobody's ever gotten an extremely good look at these drones for an incredibly long period of time to even ascertain if they are armed or not. They could be, and we just have no clue. And that's another huge security threat that is present there. Hell, I just got to say to the folks who are detracting about this, and they're like, oh, no, you can let them fly through. If you sat there and applied this to your house, would you just let random people use your front door to walk out through your backyard and hop over the fence out of the back if you didn't know who any of those people were? The answer would be no.
I would force them to use the side door. They couldn't use the front door.
Man, honestly, man, but no one would let just some random people pass through their house just to get through, just to get by. You wouldn't, because you would be like, I don't know who that guy is. I don't know if he's up to no good or what, or if he's casing the set to come back and rob this thing later. I have no clue. And just for that matter alone, we don't know what the drones are doing in our airspace. And on top of that, they're Russian. They aren't supposed to be here. They're not allowed to be here. The Russians don't allow the U.S. Air Force to fly through their airspace. Just on that fact alone, we don't allow the Russians to fly through our airspace without any approval, and they're never going to get it. So they have to be shot down. That's the basic bottom line of this. But moving on from that, we do have some other major news that has come out of the United States and Russia today. And I'll be bringing y'all to the U.S. news first, because the timeline with this is a little bit tough to ascertain, because it seems as though the announcements were made practically simultaneously. Pretty much they both knew it was coming, because they had already told each other on de-escalation lines, most likely. But we will be going over this news. The President of the United States today has announced that nuclear testing is going to be conducted on an equal level. So let me read off the post to y'all that was made by the President today. The United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country. This was accomplished, including a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during my first term. Because of other countries' testing programs, I've instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That was then...
Wait a sec. He said the U.S. has the most nuclear weapons? Is that what he said?
Yes.
How's that? Because I thought the last count that we had, the publicly available information, was Russia had the largest number of weapons. For whatever reason, they have the largest number. So when did the U.S. have more?
Let's see here, by country. Let me go get that really quickly. Let's see here. Let's go take a quick look at the number.
Yeah, see, Russian Federation allegedly has 4,300 something warheads, and we have 3,700. I reported on that a year ago, in fact. So unless the U.S. has more than we were previously told about, then that's simply not true.
We might be excluding the non-operational nuclear weapons that Russia has on paper, but actually don't work. That might be the case.
Possibly so. It's just interesting, though. He's throwing that figure out there like people know about that, but that's not common knowledge.
Because you know what I'm thinking here, Matthew, is just like, how in the world is Russia, before the war started, that is, they had a $55 billion military budget compared to, at the time, we had about a $750 billion military budget. How in the world were they maintaining a 1.2 million man strong military with the largest amount of tanks in the world, one of the largest numbers of nuclear submarines on the planet, the largest numbers of surface fleet vessels on the planet, at least, not compared to the U.S. Navy. And then on top of that, They also had the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, and they were maintaining all of that with $55 billion. Like, that seems like, and of course we know with the war in Ukraine, most of the tanks that existed on paper weren't even operational. They practically didn't exist. So I'm guessing the same thing exists with their nuclear figures. And that's why the president may be saying that we have the largest number, but at the same time, the president also says, everything's the biggest and the grandest. So, you don't know. But anyways, it does appear that we have now given the orders, at least according to the President of the United States, to start conducting nuclear weapons testing on an equal basis compared to the People's Republic of China and the Russian Federation. That now brings us over to Vandenberg Space Force Base outside of Los Angeles. Vandenberg Space Force Base is a fairly significant complex here on the western coast of the United States of America, about a couple of hours north of Los Angeles, really more so only about an hour or so. Vandenberg houses a large amount of silos that are able to launch Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles. Dang, that was not expected. But these Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles are somewhat old, or at least with the age at which these ICBMs are at. Still, they are quite effective, and we did launch a test of one last night. We were able to see some clips of that, or at least a picture of the launch from Vandenberg right here, and we were also able to get footage released by the Department of Defense showing the missile launches right here as well. We cannot play the audio, but we can show the clip of the missile being launched, which we can see right here. And there goes
that. You gotta love it right there. A Minuteman III. We've been using that missile for a long, long time. That is a tried and true system right there. It's impressive though. We still have to test the thing on a regular basis, like we're doing right now. This test was likely scheduled probably at least a year in advance, I'd imagine, just based on what I've heard before. So, it's routine. I don't think even Russia tests their ICBM missiles quite like that.
No, they actually don't. We test ours quite regularly, and we always have successes most of the times. There's very rarely do we ever have failures. And this one was, of course, another success as usual.
Going out of Vandenberg of all places. I think they launch the SpaceX stuff out of Vandenberg as well, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, from time to time they actually do. I know a couple of people at Vandenberg, and they actually say the base is quite nice.
Oh, look, a little detonation.
Yeah, look at that, a little remote detonation, but the test was a success, once again showing that the U.S. nuclear arsenal, unlike Russia's, actually works. Also, by the way, just to give you a little bit of a fun fact here, the Minuteman III has been in service since 1970, so it is quite an old little feller right there. It's about 55 years old and still kicking. So, good 55-year birthday for the Minuteman IIIs, because for 55 years, they've continued to be the #1 nuclear deterrent on land, at least, for the United States of America, while the Tridents have been our nuclear intercontinental ballistic missile deterrents right next to the Minuteman III. But moving on from that, the United States of America was able to complete its successful test overnight of the Minuteman III ICBM, and the Russian Federation has now responded by also stating the following. They are now going to be resuming nuclear testing as well. According to Putin, they are instructing the Foreign Ministry, the Defense Ministry, the intelligence services, and civilian agencies to draft proposals on resuming nuclear tests, the first in 35 years. We've also heard that apparently Gerasimov then immediately stated that they should start conducting tests on Ukraine. According to the Chief of General Staff Gerasimov, Russia must take appropriate measures in response to Washington's desire to conduct nuclear tests. If we do not take action now, time will be lost for timely response to the actions of the USA. And then what's this guy, man? The Earth is Sky guy. What's his name?
Oh, fighter bomber?
Oh, yeah, fighter bomber then said, there's an excellent testing ground called Ukraine. So it does appear that they are once again trying to insinuate the idea of a larger nuclear threat against Ukraine once more through their propagandists, and also somewhat insinuating it through the Russian government a little bit, considering that they already did lob an Oreshnik at them a little while ago, specifically at the city of Dnipro. And so it's generally something that is a little bit concerning, at least on that end. Still, outside of that, it does appear that the Russian Federation is dealing with some issues. And while they're running out of money, they're apparently going to be running out of money even faster now, trying to keep up with the United States and our nuclear missile tests that we're going to be conducting here throughout the next several years, most likely. But it does appear that a lot of people are actually talking about this very moment right now, and the announcement that the United States of America launched in a Minuteman III ICBM test overnight, and also the statements by the President of the United States about the resumption of regular nuclear tests. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so y'all might recall back in May, there was a scheduled Minuteman III test back in May of this year, which is just a few months ago, and it was actually delayed and it was not conducted because, and this wasn't widely reported, but this was the reason they didn't launch it, is because geopolitical tensions were so high, they felt that the launch would likely cause something to pop off, so they delayed the launch. But we did see today, actually last night, that the U.S. did test that Minuteman III that we saw in that video and launched it from Vandenberg and out into the ocean. And what are your thoughts about that? 48% said it's smart and it sends a strong message to Putin and our adversaries, while 30% said it's routine anyway and there's really no comment to be made on it, and 17% said it's unwise because it's unnecessary escalation. So I would say, honestly, if they delayed the last test because they felt it was too hot of a situation around the world to test it, it's certainly not a better time now. In fact, it's probably a worse time, actually. So we do need to test our ICBMs, but at the same time, though, and hopefully people don't take this the wrong way, because I believe in taking a strong stance against Russia, but we have to be very careful about nuclear-capable missiles because we're in a very tense time right now. And, of course, we're probably communicating to Russia on back channels about this launch, so that way there's not any misunderstandings. But, launching ICBMs, that is by nature escalatory. So we have to be careful with that. And also, the U.S. is very quick to say we're going to return back to testing nuclear munitions of sorts. Look at what that's triggered. It's triggered Russia to also restart nuclear tests themselves, which in my opinion is not good. So when it comes to nukes, we have to be very careful about that. That is something there that we should take very seriously and weigh that out very carefully, because it seems like both the United States and Russia are going wild right now when it comes to the new nuclear arms race, which is something that's horrifying. That's something very bad right there. So I'm actually with the minority. I'm with the 18%. I think it's kind of unwise at this point in time right now. We might have delayed it until a little bit later, but that's just my personal opinion on the matter. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would just say that I'd actually be with the 48%. I do think that it sends a fairly strong message, and we already understand that the Russian Federation was going to go back to these nuclear tests at some point in the future. Just to lay this out there to y'all over what we've seen from the past several weeks before we went off air for the Enforcer HQ 3.0 move, the Russian Federation was already announcing that they were going to be creating and developing newer and deadlier nuclear weapons. We already know that they are. They have already announced, well, not really newer and deadlier, it's just more so new in the sense that nobody else has been stupid enough to make them. But the Burevestnik, the multiple hypersonics that are nuclear capable, the Oreshnik intercontinental ballistic missile, the Sarmat, and so on, they have been creating multiple new nuclear weapons. And on top of that, they have been conducting tests of these nuclear weapon systems for quite some time at this point. So if the Russians are saying that they're going to start going back to full-blown nuclear tests, I don't really know what they mean by that, unless they mean that they're going to be conducting nuclear warhead tests, because the Russian Federation has already been conducting a large amount of nuclear tests at this point, including the test of the supposed cruise missile that they launched, along with the tests of the multiple hypersonics that they've launched, along with the Oreshnik IRBM that they launched directly at Ukraine with its MIRV intact, which did end up landing inside of Dnipro. They have been conducting multiple actions such as that, and yet now that the United States is responding to these endless amounts of provocations from the Russians, now the Russians want to act like, oh, well, look at that, the U.S. is being aggressive to us, and now we're going to up them one. Generally, I would say that this is a fairly strong response with that in mind, considering that the Russians have already been doing this for a while, and given the fact that the United States conducts routine nuclear tests, and Russia's are non-routine and generally impromptu from what we are understanding, I would say that they would be more so in the camp of being escalatory with their actions, and the United States is only responding at this point more so than being proactive and escalating the situation out of hand.
Yeah, I would say so, honestly. It's just really concerning. I know some people are about to be like, "Oh, Russia always throws around the nuclear threats. Don't take it so seriously." But when people start testing actual nuclear warheads, which it sounds like the US is going to start testing nuclear warheads again, which hasn't been done in a very long time, and we're now hearing Putin is following suit with that. And now we're also hearing that North Korea is going to be following suit with that. So it's spreading like a virus at this point. This whole nuclear testing fury behind it is starting to spread to many different countries. And that is a type of escalation that you absolutely do not want, because once people start testing them and actually using them, in my personal opinion, I think psychologically the barrier of use starts getting lower and lower, because those countries are getting way more comfortable testing them and actually using them like they're more of a traditional munition. And that might actually encourage them to maybe use it on Ukraine or do something of that nature. So me personally, I think the US ought to take a step back when it comes to the nuclear situation. On everything else, though, we need to be strong with Putin, but we don't want to start playing with something as deadly as nukes and pretending like it's like a no-brainer or something like that. We need to take that extremely seriously, and we don't want to act like a child, playing with nukes like it's a toy, because it's not a toy. It's something that could end the entire world if it gets out of hand. So that's just my personal opinion.
I would have to generally say I would definitely agree. At the same time, I would also say we have to make sure that we're not looking weak against the Russians, even if that means that we're escalating at the nuclear level at that point with nuclear demonstrations and nuclear, I guess you could say, muscles in a sense. I would say that we still can't be weak against the Russians and show any weakness, because they'll take advantage of any weakness that they can find. But at the same time, folks, it is time for us to move on into the rest of the news that we have for the night. And we actually still have a very considerable amount of news to cover from the entirety of around the world. And to give you all a little bit of a bonus point today, considering that the Russians, they're going to start spending a good amount of money on these full-blown nuclear tests, I do have to remind you all that the Russians are running out of money. And they ran out of enough money today that they're now going to be completely shutting down the Vostochny Cosmodrome. And
They got the power turned off, man. That's crazy. That's crazy work right there. A Cosmodrome with the power shut off. That's wild.
So, funnily enough, folks, no joke, the power company came by and read the meter for the Cosmodrome and gave the Russian government the bill. The Russian government just couldn't pay the bill, so they shut the power off. I'm not even kidding. Like, the utility came by and literally snapped the power off to the whole Cosmodrome because they can't pay for it.
Man, sooner or later, Putin's gonna be saying, "Thank you so much for the super chat and helping to keep the lights on." Because honestly, he needs help keeping the lights on at this point. That's wild right there. That's crazy. A place that launches Russia's missiles literally had the power shut off. I mean, that's like, I had to read that twice today because I was a little bit skeptical about it. I was like, is this like a meme or like satire or something? But it looks like it may be legit. It looks like it's from Russia.
The Far Eastern Energy Company, the FEEC, suspended electricity supplies to the Angara launch complex at the Vostochny Cosmodrome in the Amur region due to unpaid bills from the general contractor, the energy company's press service reported on Wednesday. I mean, that is just sad.
Yeah, that's pretty damn sad right there. I mean, that's about as low as it gets. Could you imagine the U.S. having that problem? Like, let's say, like, I don't name a power company in America. Like, let's say, like, let's
Southern
just make one
Company.
up. The Tennessee Power Company. Let's say the Tennessee Power Company came down to like let's say like one of our missile launch sites and said, "Okay, y'all haven't paid the bill, United States government. We're going to shut the power off to your missile site." You would be in disbelief. Like that would never happen. But in Russia, somehow that's possible.
Man, imagine at Vandenberg Space Force Base, they're saying there, T-minus 10 to launch. Boom! What the hell happened? What happened? And then you hear the general over there, boop, boop, boop. Hey, is this Pacific Gas and Electric? Yeah, sorry, guys. We just didn't have enough money to pay the bill, but I promise you guys, we'll have the money in like a couple of days. Just, you gotta turn the power back on right now. We were in the middle of something really important. It's like, man, could you imagine?
Yeah, honestly, that's crazy. It's like, can they even operate or launch missiles without power to the facility? It seems like
No.
it makes it impossible to even launch a missile at that point.
No, you can't. A lot of it's powered by electricity and operated with it. So if the electricity's off, most of the stuff at the Cosmodrome is inoperable.
That's wild. I mean, that's insane. It's almost hard to believe.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, it is impossible to believe. I mean, and on top of that, man, you got to know that the utility's sitting there thinking, okay, we can always guarantee that the Russian government will pay the bills for all these, facilities that we're upkeeping electricity-wise, so we can always count on that income, and now they can't even count on that. I mean, that's just crazy.
It's really crazy. Absolutely wild.
But with that little bonus news out of the way, folks, because that was something that's literally unbelievable. You can't believe that, like the Russian government running out of money, and this isn't like a made up run out of money thing, like the government shutdown here in America, where it's an issue of agreeing on spending the money. Russia's literally just out of money. I mean, it's not like they're having a hard time agreeing to spend the money on the Cosmodrome, which is kind of what's happening in the US in a more elaborate way. Over there, they just literally don't even have the money, so they can't even pay the power company, and that's why the power's being shut off. But anyways, folks, with that, I hope that does address that well. But before we move on into the rest of our news for the night, which there is still a lot of, especially inside of Ukraine, the Middle East, the Indian subcontinent, the Caribbean, and elsewhere, I do want to make sure that we ask this little question here to all of y'all. Matthew just threw it up, and Putin has ordered the preparation for nuclear tests, and a lot of people are wondering what's going to be going on with the whole insinuated nuclear attack on Ukraine deal that was insinuated by some. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? What are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So like we mentioned a moment ago, Putin has ordered the preparations for nuclear tests, definitely missile tests, and maybe even live detonations of nuclear warheads on an atoll off the coast of Russia. And also, Russian officials appear to have threatened Ukraine with a strike, a nuclear test. Although technically that's more of a strike than a test, because if you're literally striking Ukraine with a nuke, that's not a test, that's an actual deployment. So what are your thoughts? 48% said the U.S. needs to double the stakes, while 39% said there's really no good answer here, and 8% said the U.S. needs to back down. So this is a tricky one. I'm not gonna really sugarcoat this one. It's a bit tricky. I personally am not in favor of doubling the stakes when it comes to nukes. That is reckless, in my opinion, because it's expected that Putin's going to be reckless. He's a lunatic dictator, so obviously he's going to be an idiot because that's what he's all about. So we don't want to play into that because Putin is willing to take it to the brink, and we don't want to play into it. So the U.S. can't back down because we can't start taking steps back. That makes us look weak. So there's really no good answer here. I'm sort of stuck in the middle on this one. I think we should simply wait this out and see what happens. Don't take any action. Don't escalate or de-escalate, and just see what happens. So I'm with the 40%. I think we need to be very careful. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that I would be with the 40%. There really isn't a good answer here. Doubling the stakes could get us actually quite close to a full-blown nuclear war with the Russians outright, which might not be the greatest idea. So I would generally say this might not be the greatest of a thing to have to deal with. I would generally say that the approach that we should take right now is to make it fairly clear that if any nuclear action is taken against the state of Ukraine, there will be a strong response by the United States of America, and then generally leave it open-ended as to what their response will be. It will be guaranteed, however, in that open-ended response that an armed response by the United States would be inevitable to such an action, but at the same time, we don't want to double the stakes by saying, if you nuke Ukraine with one nuke, we're going to kill everyone in Russia. That would be a terrible thing to do, because then we've literally turned that into skipping World War III. We've completely skipped World War III and the tactical nuclear exchange. We've just escalated that straight up to the death of everyone in the Northern Hemisphere immediately, without any additional steps added in at that point. So we would want to start at the bottom still. If they nuke Ukraine, pretty much the ground war for World War III will start in Europe at that point with the Russians, and then we'll work from there. That's what I would say. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion. And Matthew, I actually understand that we have a couple of questions from the chat. So what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first 3 Super Chat questions and then getting right back to our news, our first one here goes to none other than BC Skyman. He is back once again, and he throws in a $100 support. And thank you very much, BC, for that very generous support right there. And we do appreciate that very much. And it's good to see you once again. And he did not leave a comment, but I was going back here because I think he left a super sticker with it. And he did. He left 2 super stickers. He left one of the YouTube creature jumping out of a treasure chest and punching the air. He has the thing for, fighting. He could be in the MMA or the MMA. But also there's another super sticker of the YouTube Doge creature with sparklers. It says, "You're amazing." And also it has little honkers down there at the bottom too, like little party honker things, whatever you call them. The wording was a little sus there, but we'll
It's
overlook
got
that.
honkers, bro.
We'll just overlook that. But anyways, thank you very much, BC Skyman. And Enforcer, what say you?
Wow, look at those honkers. Like, wow. It actually does, folks. It actually has little horns. Not honkers. They're called horns. But it's got like 4 of them in its feet. And I gotta say, a big thanks to you, BC Skyman, for the insanely massive support. You didn't throw in a comment, but we always know, BC Skyman, that you have the greatest things to say and the kindest words to say about the channel. And we're always massively appreciative and incredibly thankful for you being here tonight and enjoying this channel and supporting it, so that way we can keep this thing running and make this thing possible. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would have never been able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't be able to keep it running, and we wouldn't be able to make it a reality tonight. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Rubber Bisking, who puts in a $50 support. And thank you very much, Rubber Bisking, for that $50 support right there, and also helping to keep the channel running just like BC Skyman. And he said, "Hello, Enforcers, and do you think NATO isn't shooting down drones because of the cost of the weapons it would take to do so? And would shooting them down pose a risk to civilians? And thanks again, and congrats on making it to Utah safely, and Slav Ukraine."
And great question. And I gotta say, thank you for the best wishes on getting to Salt Lake City safely. And I would have to tell you that NATO shooting down drones, it's not necessarily about the cost, because when we're dealing with the risk to civilians and also to our national security, generally the holy trifecta that I laid out earlier, the cost to the economy, the cost of safety to the citizenry, and also the cost to national security, when you combine those 3 together, the response is truly priceless. We could spend any amount of money to shoot down these drones, and it would be justified at that point in the budgeting. Because what would look really bad? This is what would look really bad. If a civilian airliner crashes because of one of these drones and 300 people get killed, and we said 300 people's lives was worth less than a $300,000 AIM-9, or for that matter, any other weapon system that we could use to shoot the drone down, which would cost, a lot less than 300 lives. A lot of people look at lives as costing quite a lot of money. And to be entirely honest with y'all, if we actually broke down a human life and the amount of figures of expense that was spent to raise them to be full-grown functioning adults, people actually are quite expensive. Funnily enough, the military, the Army, actually says that its most expensive asset is the infantry, which crazily enough actually ends up being mostly true. An infantry squad can cost about as much as a helicopter, believe it or not, so quite an expensive sort of an asset to have. Beyond that, however, that is what generally would be the bad optic about that. Whenever public safety comes into perspective, which it is involved here, the response can be priceless and is completely justifiable. We don't even have to worry about the expense. The other issue that I can bring up here is, let's see, the risk to citizenry on the ground. That is a consideration. And that is a consideration that we did see when, well, at least it was purported to be an issue when the Chinese balloon flew over the United States. I honestly think they were just going to let that pass over and try and not make an issue out of it until someone spotted it, and then that's when it became an issue, and then they had to shoot it down. But generally, the risk to citizenry is weighed into the equation, but at the same time, all you have to do is give everyone a shelter-in-place order where they go inside and remain in shelter while the drone's being shot down, and then once the drone's shot down, everyone gets the all clear and they can go right back outside, and any amount of casualties or injury is heavily mitigated as a result of that. So that's generally how that could be addressed or dealt with, so that way there wouldn't be any possible collateral in the citizenry by taking those actions, and also generally why the cost wouldn't really play too much of a factor, at least in my opinion, because we can't let that hamstring us, because if like say it's a cruise missile flying over Germany and it's about to hit an airbase, are we not going to shoot that missile down? Because if we shoot the missile down, the debris might end up falling through a roof somewhere and end up breaking someone's arm. It's like, well, what's worse, that person's arm being broken, or the fact that that could blow up a multi-$100 million strategic airlift aircraft like a C-5 Galaxy and possibly kill multiple airmen as well? I would say that at that point, you would have to shoot the missile down, and whatever collateral happened, much like they do in Ukraine. Because generally national security and the safety of the public takes priority, and in the process of trying to save the public and also protect national security, there might be some collateral, but it would be expected to be far less than what would happen if we just let this continue on until its inevitable conclusion, which is going to be incredibly unfortunate. But still, a humongous thanks to you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, folks, we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be getting right back on into the news. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for the kind words God written and the massive support and the great question. Because folks like you help to make this channel possible with your support. And with that, we're on to the final question of this segment.
And this one goes to Rick Galenchin, who throws in a $50 super chat. In fact, I believe that is a 50 Canadian, and it is. It is a 50 Canadian support all the way from Canada. And thank you very much, Rick, for that support and throwing that in. And he said, "How do you guys like Salt Lake City so far?" And me personally, I like it. I'll be honest with you, Rick. I really haven't had a chance to get out and do anything the entire time we've been here because we've been trying to get settled in, also make sure the channel is running properly. And honestly, I've been swamped. So every single day is pretty much working from sun up to sundown. So one of these days, we'll actually get out and see it. So far, I've literally been just in my place, and that's about it. So hopefully very soon. But I do like the scenery, though. The scenery is fantastic to look out the window and see the mountains. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say Salt Lake City is pretty neat. Much like Matthew, I've very rarely been able to get out into it. I've either been sick and trying to recover, or in the process of also trying to get all my stuff sorted out as well, and I'm working on the channel. So I haven't really had a lot of time to really get out and experience it yet. But hopefully that'll be coming around soon, and hopefully it'll be incredibly good. It looks super clean whenever I get out. I'm always just blown away by how clean and pristine everything is. And also, snow is starting to generally form on the mountains around here a little bit. Like a little smidgen, and it's really cool to see that. I'm like, wow, look at that. And I'm like, man, now I'm starting to feel existential dread about that getting in my driveway where I have to shovel that out. But still, beyond that, a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And a big thanks to you once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling. And so with that, it is time for us, folks, to move on out of the question segment and on into the rest of the news for the night, which we do have a decent amount of. And also, I've got to say, folks, I'm just going to make this announcement real quick. This channel does not do politics, and it does not do religion. If you were coming into the chat and you were doing nothing but trying to get into political battles with people or profess your religious beliefs, please do expect to be banned very quickly. That is not allowed on the channel. We don't speak about it. When we give our analysis, if we're disagreeing with someone, it's not from a partisan perspective where we're trying to profess some sort of political opinion or view. We're just speaking about the analytics of it. We do not allow ourselves or anyone on the channel in the live chat to speak of religion or politics openly at all, whether they profess anything, whether they like it, whether they dislike someone else, or they want to get in a fight with them. That's not allowed on the channel, and that will be banned. I've seen a lot of people trying to just endlessly get free passes tonight. Free passes are over. If they've ever been given out, which they shouldn't have been, and I don't think they have been, but free passes are over. There's not going to be any pass on politics at this point because people are starting to go ham with it, and there's endless fights happening in the chat, and that's not what the chat's about. Anyways, moving on from that, we are going to be getting into the rest of the news for the night. And also, folks, when I mean free passes, I'm just trying to generally make it to where we're saying the buck is stopping here, because we haven't let it pass ever before, but the buck stops here. It's not going to continue to pass. But anyways, moving on from that, we are going to be moving on into the Caribbean, because we have been able to hear of more developments inside the Caribbean over the course of the day. For one, the United States of America has hit another vessel within the area. We were able to see that right here. Footage was published by the Department of Defense. Oddly enough, the middle of the vessel was censored, but the strike then occurred and the vessel was destroyed.
That's a little bit strange. They blurred the middle of it. Seems like that would be something you wouldn't want to blur because that's the evidence basically. Also, by the way, I had heard that one of the Colombian individuals that were on one of these boats that were struck was apparently let go and not charged with anything. If I have that story correct.
Yeah, actually, we were about to get to that because I was about to say it is a little bit weird that they would censor the middle of this vessel. It did have 4 outboard motors, though, which certainly isn't a fishing vessel, you can say that. But one thing that is also quite questionable is that a Colombian national, a survivor of the U.S. drug submarine strike, was released without any charges and also was not detained for a long period of time, which makes us wonder why that was the case. Because if he was actually involved and a member of a cartel, then there is a good ground to detain him indefinitely at Guantanamo Bay. 100%. But he wasn't, and he's being released and returned back to Colombia, which would suggest, at least at the face value of it, that the guy was not involved in any cartel operations, and that he would have been considered to be civilian collateral on board that vessel if he had been killed. Which is starting to beg the question, how many people who have been civilian collateral have been killed on board these boats, which is now starting to become an even larger question. At the same time, we did get to see a US KC-135, which did conduct a flight near to Venezuela earlier today for unknown reasons, and we've also been able to get a little bit of videos and pictures of the 22nd Mutiny and its operations around Puerto Rico, and we're going to mute that because that was incredibly loud and it shattered my ears. But here's the clip of them flying around the Iwo Jima.
Look at that, the Iwo Jima.
Look at
Oh,
that.
look, it's like Vietnam again. That's what we want. Let's repeat Vietnam. Send in the little helicopters.
Bow, 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 bow. We can see the AH-1Zs continuing to fly on along. I got to say, the Vipers are, crazily enough, a very long-lived platform. Because these folks, actually, these AH-1Zs, I believe are upgraded versions of the AH-1G, if I'm not mistaken. And the Cobras have been around as America's first attack. Actually, funnily enough, folks, the Cobra, which is what this is for the large part, was the first attack helicopter that was purpose-built for that role in the world, and this is the most modified variant of it, and it's still in service about 60 or so years later.
It's just crazy to me. Honestly, like just seeing these fly over right here and seeing the land in the distance, it reminds me of Vietnam so much, like the old footage and stuff like that. It really looks very similar to it.
Man, but this ain't Nam. Oh, this ain't Nam. This is infrared hell. Like, welcome to infrared hell.
If they shorten Vietnam to be just Nam, if we go to war in Venezuela, what's this going to be? This like Zuela? Is that what we're going to say? Oh yeah, I was in Zuela.
Man, no, man, we're going to say it in some weird way, like they used to say Vietnam. Or we're going to say Venezuela or something like that, man. It's going to be
Zuala.
Venezuela, man, or something like that. It's going to be like a Starbucks drink. Okay, I don't know. He was just mugging the camera at the start.
Cameraman right there. He's practicing that war face. Look at him.
Man, he sat there and said, "Stand in front of this camera, and you're still not getting paid." And he went, "Oh," and he just mugged the camera for 3 seconds. Well,
look, they love those LCACs, those things right there that are hard as hell to maintain. They love them.
The LCAC. Look at him go.
They did look pretty cool coming in, I will say that.
Look at him go. Wonderful little vehicles here.
Just big old cushions of air riding over the water like that. Fantastic. Airboat. Those Cajuns would love this, by the way.
Man, honestly, man. Dude, this is what a Cajun dreams of in their sleep, you know? Like, instead of having that little airboat that they have an LCAC and they're going around the bayou in this thing. Man, that's what they really want.
You're not going around the bayou, just swinging a little LCAC around the corner in the water.
Man, dying shoe.
I can't do Cajun speak. Like, it's too foreign to me. Look at it. It's deflated and everything. Look at that.
And they're getting ready to drop off the LAV-25s. Everyone loves an LAV-25.
Is there still such a thing as a Cajun Navy?
Yeah, that's like a non-profit sort of a deal.
Yeah, it's not like a military thing, but they call it the Cajun Navy.
And here comes the LAV-25s off of the ramp. And there's a Seahawk. Wow, magical. Let's take a look at the next clip. Oh, wow. Airborne. Look at that. Wow.
They're deploying GI.
Wow, who are these guys? We're about to find out, hopefully.
Welcome to your new home, GI.
Man. Americans, your country has abandoned you. You can now get Don Julio for $120 in Caracas. Like, oh, man.
Sir, should I land with my legs fully extended, sir?
Dude, that guy hit the ground, and I think he immediately started running. Oh, no, he actually was... he actually got his chute up and everything, I believe, or detached from it at least, and he's off.
Could someone who was, like, in the airborne, like, is there always somebody that gets injured on every single one of these jumps right here? Because it seems like at least one person's got to get injured, like with that fall.
What unit is he in? Shoot, that's a low visibility version of the patch, and I hate to tell you folks, I don't really do good with the low visibility patches. So unfortunately I can't tell you what unit he's in. It is definitely Army Airborne. So there is an Army unit that's present within the area right now.
Those guys have been real meticulous here.
You've got to be meticulous with the parachutes. They're fairly expensive, actually.
That's nothing for the military. They spend that like water.
Hey, you wouldn't want an Article 15 for destruction of government property on a training drill, would you?
Now I prefer an Article 5.
Honestly.
I'm just waiting to see one of those AC-130 gunships going over, you know, the little...
Yeah. And here's another clip right here.
What kind of environment? Where are they?
Why, they're in the desert.
Is this Trinidad and Tobago? That doesn't look like the environment there.
Oh, no, this isn't Trinidad and Tobago. I actually don't know where this one is.
Interesting. Yeah, I was like, that environment looks not like anything in that region.
And everyone's saying the 173rd. The 173rd? Hold up, folks. Isn't that in Europe? Isn't that in Africa Task Force, Italy? Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's their patch.
Interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. So where was that footage from, then? Because they're in Vicenza, in Italy. And once y'all brought up the 173rd, I was like, well, they're in the Africa Task Force. Why in the world would they be in the Eastern Caribbean? So maybe that footage is not from the Eastern Caribbean. Wait a minute. Let's look at this. Okay, they drop. That is near Vicenza, Italy, because that back there is the Alps. I'm fairly certain.
Also, aren't some of these guys in some of the clips here, aren't these some of these Marines? Like, why does the caption say U.S. Army? Like, some of them are Army, but some of them are Marines.
The ones on the LCACs were the Marines. These guys, though, are the Army, because you can tell by the camo pattern that they're using. The Marines have their own camo pattern. I forgot the specific name of it, but I honestly think it's really cool looking. But these guys are Army, and if we look at their patch again, right there, you can actually see the sword held by the wing, which is the emblem of the 173rd, and this is the high-vis version. Well, actually, it's a bayonet with a wing wrapped around it, and that's the emblem of the 173rd. So this is the 173rd, and considering that their permanent basing is in Vicenza, I would have to assume that this footage here is actually from somewhere around Vicenza, Italy.
Yeah, it's got to be, because that environment does not look similar. I think the Marine footage might have been from Venezuela, but the jumper footage here is not.
This is probably from Puerto Rico. This is definitely from Puerto Rico. This is most likely from Italy, and I honestly think this is from the
This is
United
not Italy.
States. I have a feeling this is the United States.
Yeah, I think so. This doesn't look like Italy, Venezuela. This looks like nothing.
You know what this looks like? This looks like North Arizona.
It could be. It could be Yucca
Yuck!
or Yuma. Also, let's see. Chris's mom said, with the parachutes they have now, there's less injuries. I switched to these parachutes when I was getting out of the Army. Yeah, the parachutes did look like they're pretty large, by the way. But I could imagine even with larger parachutes, it probably soften the fall a little bit more. I would imagine there's got to be at least 1 or 2 people that lock their legs up and smack their legs down, like when they're smashing on the ground like that. That's gotta hurt.
Man, honestly, man. Dude, I bet you that's not good for your knees being in the airborne.
Oh, hell no. I would imagine not. Make
We
sure
now
you protect your legs, GI.
make sure to look like a real wimp and put on your knee pads, GI. Like, just because knee injuries are no joke. They are the worst thing to get. I mean, at that point, you may as well already be nearly paralyzed in your legs if your knees don't work. Because if your knees don't work, your legs practically don't work. So protect your knees, folks. I know that people hate the way knee pads look, but you gotta protect your knees. Look at that. Now, these are definitely the U.S. Marines.
I think this is in California, actually.
You know, I have a feeling it's around some area that has about 29 palms in it. No more, no less.
Could be, possibly. It's definitely the desert, though. Oh, look, a little airdrop.
Oh. Look at that. Wow. Look at that.
All you have to do to collect that is run up to it and hold the X button, and you instantly get all the crate supplies out of
Man,
it.
man. Honestly, if that was that easy, that would be great.
You can also bonk the crates with your fist a couple of times and get gold coins, too, that you can take.
Oh, wow. The rotary gun, the 25 mil on the Cobras sound great. And those are the Hydras. They're doing another drop.
Sometimes you have to send an extra care package. Sometimes the enemy comes along and presses X first, so you got to resupply to make sure that they didn't get snatched.
There's the moon.
Oh, that's nice. It's good to know it's still there.
They're right off the flight line, and then we're in the...
That's a Canadian. That's a Canadian right there.
This is like footage that is just like totally unrelated to Venezuela.
Building,
if that's okay, yeah.
This is a Marine.
Pull up the past 28.
Once this mission with Tron
That's
is
the
over,
sun.
I'll send them that mission just so we don't mess up their OODA loop.
That's the horizon. That's also the moon. Well, I don't know why that moon's getting me to cough. That's the moon that makes you cough. Dang. But that's everything going on in the Caribbean right now. Meanwhile, moving on out of that and making sure that we covered everything in Washington, it's now time for us to move on around the world. Journey with me, will ya? Moving on into the Indian subcontinent, we were able to hear that everyone in China and India have paused their purchases of Russia and Iranian oil due to increasing sanction enforcement, resulting in extremely discounted prices on Iranian oil. That is very good to hear. The Iranians are also suffering as well. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, in the middle of the East, in the dead center of the middle of the East, in Saudi Arabia, we were able to hear that they are now trying to purchase up to 48 F-35 Lightnings. According to Reuters, a final decision on the major defense deal has not yet been made, but the Pentagon has been working on the details of the potential sale for several months. Such a transaction could significantly alter the balance of power in the Middle East, and I would hope so. The Saudis are a great ally of the United States of America. They produce this really cool thing called oil, and they also have absolutely no press rights in that country. Still, they are an ally of the United States of America, and for that reason, we should give them Lightnings. That's actually a country I'm a fan of giving F-35 Lightnings. We generally give them pretty decent stuff. If you've ever looked at the Saudi Air Force, which allow me to show y'all here really quickly, we actually give them some really fine equipment. Nice stuff, really, is the best way to put it. They have 71 Eurofighter Typhoons. 71 of them. Would you ever believe that you'd see a Eurofighter Typhoon with Arabic on it? No, you wouldn't. And yet the Saudis have them. They also have 81 Panavia Tornadoes. They also have 211 different variants of the F-15, including the most advanced, the F-15EX Strike Eagle II. So we actually do give them quite a decent amount of equipment. And when I say give, folks, I mean sell it. Obviously not give it to them for free. They're going to have to pay. They got all that oil money, and we want a little bit of that. So they're going to have to pay, but still, they do get a decent amount of our good stuff anyways, and they're pretty good customers, so let's give them some F-35s. It's the export stealth aircraft that we made. They're buying, we're selling, so let's give them some. Also on top of that, if you ever look at the Saudi Army, and let me go show you all that. The Saudi Army is also no joke either. Let me go show you all that here really quickly. Oh, let's see here. We need to find the equipment. Equipment of the Saudi Army. Here we are. Oh, they've got that Glock.
Oh, man, that's a smart choice there. You gotta love those. Those are good old reliables.
And we will skip everything else and just go straight to the heavy vehicles. They also have a great deal of artillery, but we won't cover that for now. Let's see here. Oh, here we are. They have the following: 575 M1A2Ss. There's the Saudi ones right there. This is the one closest to the screen on the right. That's a Saudi M1A2. Pretty much identical to the US M1A2, except that the depleted uranium armor inserts are not inserted in theirs. I believe they get chobam armor in the turret cheeks of the Saudi M1A2s, which is like depleted uranium, but it's just a little bit of a step down from it. But they do get that. It's the second best thing that they can get, and it's fairly close to depleted uranium. So they get those. They also have 370 M60 patents, and they also have 140 AMX-30s, which are fairly ancient these days, but they still have them. So y'all can see, the Saudis have been a big customer of ours for a while. They also have 380 Bradleys as well, which is not a small number. So they are quite a large customer of ours, and I would generally tell y'all that we should allow them to continue to be big customers and give them some F-35s, because it could only help us with beating the Iranians in the future. Moving on from that, and on out of the Middle East, it's now time for us to move on up into Europe and to continue our coverage of the news of the war in Ukraine. Moving us on into our location unknowns, we were able to see a Russian doomsday truck. This one was particularly fun.
What the hell? What, did they hang like electrical wire off the side of it or something? What is that?
Matthew, that's called a nice haircut, and we respect that.
Also, I like the industrial vent, like the dryer vent they put on the back of it right there with the metal slats going sideways right there. That's a nice added touch right there. Very practical.
Oh, this is the front.
Well, that's still good. Good dryer vent at the front. That always helps you tank.
Man, this is the back. This is the front. It's like, what's the difference? There hardly is any. But it looks terrible. This thing is truly horrendous, especially from the side.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't look good from the back. Usually that's the best angle, but not here. That's not.
Man, you know, I heard the words of a wise actor one day. He said, "Man, back in the day, we used to call it bussing on each other." And one guy, he couldn't get a right angle. And honestly, that's this vehicle.
Hey, yo. You don't know who said that, but they sound a little bit sus.
Man, that was the guy who also came up with the amazing line, "Keeps my wife's name out your effing mouth." And it was that guy. It was that guy. And he also came up with that line. That guy is full of great lines. Incredibly wonderful lines. I just wish his kid was as good as acting as he was. But with that, moving on from then on into the location unknowns, we also got to see the following losses. According to Miss Disa, keeper of the records, Miss Disa stated correction. Artillery is plus 24 total. 34,273, not yesterday's numbers. 398 drones is the 20th highest daily loss, tied with October 20th of 2025, and categories are below the 7-day averages. Now, folks, let's break it on down into the finer numbers. Russia's losses as of the 5th of November. 900 troops wounded and killed, along with 3 APCs, 70 supply trucks, 3 main battle tanks, 24 artillery pieces, 398 drones, and 2 anti-aircraft warfare missile systems. So, all in all, not bad. Moving on out of the location unknowns and the casualty reports, we're now going to be moving our way on up into Vovchansk, where we were able to see Russian positions getting hit quite greatly by Ukrainian drones, including this Bahanka, which got turned to smithereens.
Oh, wow. Look, they just sent a little beep in there and got him.
Man, I have to say,
Oh, look, they sent a green one down. Organic. Oh. Oh.
man.
You, sir, would you like some organic bananas? You, sir. How dare you, sir? Get your hands off my organics. This bloke right here touched me on the organics, people.
What are the charges? Enjoying organic? A succulent Chinese organic? How dare you, sir? Get your hands off my organics! This is the bloke who touched me on the organic, people. Oh, and you, sir, are you ready to receive my limp organics? No, man, honestly, that's almost the same thing that he said. But moving on from that, and on down to the Lehman front, the Signum unit was also taking a couple of hits.
The Signum Mail unit right here. Are these those fiber optic drones right here they're still using? Oh, look at these guys.
Oh,
You guys crouching down like he's in Mission Impossible or something like that. But it turned out the mission was actually impossible. He got smashed.
hey, yo. He got smashed. Hey, yo. What the hell? Like, man.
He got smashed by that drone real hard.
That was even worse. Like, that's getting worse, man. Oh my goodness.
Damn, I tell you, this is a rough life out here on this battlefield. Look at this. This thing's right here. It's causing these guys to start tripping. That's like they see a drone, they start losing the ability to walk. It's like that's probably the time you want to be able to run is when you see a drone.
Man, they have that horror movie running ability, man. Like, as soon as something bad shows up, they can't run anymore.
Yeah, I tell you, that's just they're losing their they're not limber anymore. They're just like having a hard time.
Man, they're not limber, but they sure as hell are getting turned into timber. Oh, man. Call the Ukrainian lumberjacks because they're out there yelling, timber! And the Russians are turning into it. Holy moly. Moving on down the line, though, we also get to see the soldiers of the Special Operations Forces Unit Arten getting hit with a Russian drone and trucking on through it. Take a look. And there it was. There it hit.
Ooh.
I had to mute that there, unfortunately, because of the music. But the vehicle got hit, and they kept rolling.
Those guys having a moment here.
This
This is
guy.
like a live reaction. Oh, he's not happy about this.
This is actually interesting. This is the view from the command post, but the armored vehicle kept rolling and is still working.
That's wild. The Ukrainians have a behind-the-scenes cameraman filming the commander's reaction. It's like they're filming this for like a TV show.
It is really crazy. They have a lot of cameras.
Honestly, they're like in the production business. You can tell they have a commander in chief that used to be in television because they're literally filming it for TV.
Also, we can see the Ukrainian Special Forces unit, the Arten, continuing to get back to its operations. The armored vehicle now pulling out after dropping off the troops and getting on out of there.
They blurred this whole guy's face out. The faceless commander here.
In
wow, look, they
Artem,
got that little thing. Oh, so who's Artam?
that's the Special Forces unit.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see you know judo well. You know, they're also taking a Russian prisoner here. And that's the end of the clip. But moving on from that and further on down the line and into the Pokrovsk area, we also got to see the Ukrainians targeting and hitting Russian vehicles in the area, including this little remote-controlled drone one.
Looking really barren out here, too. It looks like it's been burned or something with how everything's orange like that. Oh, look at that little thing.
Bam!
And that was a Russian one?
Yeah, that was a Russian one.
Well, that's unbelievable, actually. The Russians have finally caught up to what the Ukrainians have been doing for months, actually. They've got their own Wally, basically. So, interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Interesting indeed. But moving on out of that and on into Donetsk, we also got to see a little incident that happened overnight. Y'all want to see the sun rise over the city of Donetsk? Watch this ammo depot.
That's bright. Oh, my God.
Wow.
Holy crap, that shockwave, though. Damn. Jeez, did you hear, man, that like burned the mic out. It was so loud. It literally just like turned into static.
Man, that was crazy right there. Let's watch that again. Dang. Oh
Damn.
my God.
What the hell munitions were in that place?
A lot of them. Yeah, apparently. A whole lot of them. We also got one other clip of that as well, from right here.
Damn.
Ooh!
That is
Oh my
insane.
Lord!
Dang. And these guys were pretty far away from that, too, for that to hit that hard.
Man, that hit like a freight train. Let's watch that again. Dang!
That is wild. Honestly, in my head, that's the way I imagine a nuke looking if it went off, is something like that. It kind of like looks like that, at least in my head.
Honestly, that's what it would look like to me too, really. Like, at least that's what I would think. But moving on from that, and for a brief moment before we get on down to Kherson and Crimea, I do have to bring y'all through the damage that was caused to Russia overnight. The Ukrainians did attack the Volgograd refinery again and have caused a large amount of damage to it. Again, you can see that right there. You can also see it right here. Would y'all like to see it from another angle? Of course. Take a look at that. There's the fire at the refinery. It was hit again. Oh, look, a little air defense up there. Didn't help them much. But, you know, they tried. And I guess it's the thought that counts for them. They never succeed. And there's the fire again at the refinery. In the midst of all this, the Russian air defenses did end up hitting one of their own houses in Volgograd.
дом.
What you can see right here.
Окна выбило. Люди вон стоят. Соседний дом.
There's the damage right there where my mouse cursor is at. Don't know how they do it. Every single time they somehow get their own in collateral. I just don't understand that. But anyways, we also saw up near Moscow, the city of Vladimir, which is a very important city, that something very bad happened for the Russians overnight. There is a huge power transformer, high voltage power transformer, or really more so a substation, that is within the area of the city of Vladimir. And this one actually supplies power to the Moscow area. And that one got hit overnight by the Ukrainians. Take a look. Oh, do y'all hear that? That sounds like a lawnmower. Lawn mowing at 3 in the morning? Oh!
Oh. Niet Vladimir.
Oh! Oh!
Oh wow, it's burning good. It's a bad substation. It's a bad day to be a substation. Did y'all know that this substation right here in Vladimir is one of the main ones that routes electricity from one of their local nuclear power stations straight to Moscow? This is very unfortunate for Russia.
Very unfortunate indeed.
It's a 750 kilovolt substation, as Andy4C was saying in the chat.
And I have to say, a beautiful thing. A beautiful thing. And also, there were reports of explosions over Rostov. We didn't get any proof of the explosions yet. We'll have to wait till tomorrow. And inside of Tuwaps, we also got satellite photography showing us the oil slicks from around the port, which is confirming the damage was pretty heavy. And also, it looks like the ships have been moved out of the way already, so apparently no significant damage was caused that led to one of the ships to sink right there at the spot, so that's interesting to note. But moving on out of Tuwaps port and the damage that was caused there, which is very good to see, we will now be once again returning back to our normal news inside of Ukraine, moving us down into the Dnipro River estuary area. We get to see the 1st Battalion of the 40th Coastal Defense Forces doing their part against the Russians in the Dnipro River.
Also, we have a Vladimir Putin lookalike in here. Oh, man. He had to go. Oh, man. That's terrible right there. Terrible.
Man, truly, it's terrible. Unfortunate, honestly.
I like how the bot's name was Vladimir Putin, president of Russia. It's like, you know, like what type of trolling even is this? Let me go check this profile out real quick. Let's see. It was literally created a few years ago. It had 200 subscribers. What a shame right there. What a shame.
What a shame. A professional Putin glazer. Like, it's getting banned. Like, what a shame.
Man, he's like that guy in New York, Sliwa. He said, "Stop glazing me. You gotta stop glazing me." They always glazing me. I walk in the room and they're glazing me.
Man, meanwhile, man, in New York, okay, it's the 90th mayoral debate. We're gonna start with the stupidest question we can imagine that impacts nobody. What's your favorite bagel? And then the first guy, my favorite bagel is the one that is a woman getting me involved in a scandal. The second guy, well, of course it's going to be the most New York answer ever. And then gives the biggest smile he can. And then Sliwa, back in 1984, a group of fire ants in Central Park strung me up and shot me with an AK 5 times. Like, I had to crawl out of Central Park, like, bleeding to death.
Better yet, sir, what's your favorite bagel? Listen, I don't eat bagels because back in 1980, I got in the back of a yellow cab and the Gambinos and the Gottis got in the back and shot me 5 times. It's like, bro, it's like, what the hell are you talking about? It's like, what does that have to do with anything? It's like, what the hell is this even about?
Dude, everyone, the other two guys up there, trying to give real answers. And then Sliwa, you ever killed a man? Honestly, man, dude, that was, honestly, folks, that was like the comedic relief section of the whole thing that happened up there. Not getting into the politics of all that, but the whole Sliwa thing, I mean, that was, honestly, folks, I respect him being there just because he was hilarious. I mean, he was hilarious the whole time. But anyways, moving on from that and on down into Crimea, we'd also get to see a Pantsir on the move within the area. This is actually a Pantsir S1, and probably the most dookie-looking one I've ever seen. Like, this thing is really missing a lot of pieces to it. But beyond that, they're moving it around Crimea. It's assumed that one of them was lost recently, and that's why this one's on the move, is to replace the other one that was lost due to enemy fire, or basically the Ukrainians blowing it up. So, with that, I hope that does address that well. And it's time for us, folks, to move on up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine here on day 1350 of The Wire. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Peach!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Зараз багато роботи з партнерами, перш за все, в інтересах нашої ППО та нашої енергетики. Це ключові пріоритети в умовах таких російських ударів. Фактично щодня наші енергетики, ремонтні бригади, ДСНС України займаються відновленням на місцях після ударів і постійно точкові влучання, і особливо в наших громадах поблизу кордону з Росією, поблизу фронту. Чернігівщина, Сумщина, Харківщина, Донеччина, Запоріжжя, Херсон, Миколаївщина – всюди оперативні служби залучені, обласна влада. Ми формуємо і відповідні зв'язки з партнерами для такої ж оперативної міжнародної підтримки. говорив сьогодні з прем'єр-міністром Японії. Це була наша перша розмова з новою очільницею уряду Японії. Відносини з Японією у нашої держави зараз в час цієї війни найбільші, ніж будь-коли. І Японія принципово нас підтримує. Ми можемо ще значно збільшити нашу співпрацю. І це передусім стосується енергетики, ППО і таких чутливих сфер, як експорт нашої зброї, як обмін досвідом оборони в цій війні. Світ зацікавлений, щоб досвід наших людей для захисту життя був поширений. Ми готові співпрацювати з тими, хто справді допомагає нам, допомагає Україні, і ми будемо значно збільшувати співпрацю з Японією. Багато цілей маємо спільних і в тиску на Росію, щоб війна не розширювалась, санкції проти Росії, використання російських активів для захисту від російської ж агресії, координація наших зусиль в дипломатії, все це у порядку денному. Сьогодні ж я говорив з президентом Литви Гітанасом Наусєдою. Дякую за підтримку, є готовність допомогти із постачанням газу, і я доручив команді все вивчити та підготувати пропозиції для політичних домовленостей. Поінформував також про ситуацію в країні у відносинах з партнерами. Ми працюємо разом з Гітанасом, щоб у нашому регіоні всі вільні країни та лідери більш взаємодіяли. Багато у нас і спільних безпекових викликів, в тому числі для захисту з повітря від загроз з Росії, з Білорусі. Обов'язково ми допоможемо. Говорив сьогодні також з президентом Сербії. Окрім безпекової тематики, про ситуацію у відносинах з Європейським Союзом, про відповідні виклики. Україна отримала позитивний звіт про нашу роботу в перемовинах щодо членства. Це, до речі, найкращий звіт за 3 роки про наше зближення з Євросоюзом. Ми готові підтримувати всі зусилля наших партнерів, тих, хто теж на шляху до членства, щоб Євросоюз у підсумку ставав сильніше, і ми плануємо і дипломатичні заходи наступних тижнів. І поки деталі не робимо публічними, але нашим представникам є над чим попрацювати і з партнерами в Євросоюзі, і з представниками Сполучених Штатів Америки. Листопад має принести не менше результатів з партнерами, ніж дав нам жовтень. Були доповіді сьогодні наших військових, був на окремій доповіді керівник Служби безпеки України. Безумовно, питання Покровськ. Ми продовжуємо знищувати окупанта. Я хочу відзначити особливо спецпризначенців ЦСОА, СБУ, які системно і дуже результативно знищують російських окупантів та їхню техніку в районах Покровська, в самому місті також. Дякую вам, хлопці, за ефективність. Є необхідні результати і у наших підрозділів, які воюють на цьому напрямку. Наші штурмові підрозділи, наші оператори сил безпілотних систем, наші воїни Національної гвардії, військової служби правопорядку, ГУР та, звісно, усіх тих наших бригад, які захищають Донеччину. Дякую всім вам, дякую всім, хто б'ється заради нашої держави, заради наших людей. Слава Україні!
Героям слава! And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine here on day 1350 of the news from around the world. And that's going to be moving us on, folks, into the second segment of this stream where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And boy, howdy, folks, what a fun time that's going to be, because I know that we have tons of questions, tons and tons of questions, fun questions, deep questions, dark questions, interesting questions, all sorts, and we are going to be making sure to get to each and every single one of them as much as we possibly can. But before we get into all of that, I do have to say that tonight has been one hell of a night. I've got to thank you all for being here so much. We've actually had 12,000 people here at the peak tonight. That's a lot of people, and we are always greatly appreciative to know that so many people continue to choose the Enforcer channel to be their primary source of news each and every single day. So a humongous thanks to you all so much once again. I hope that does address y'all's time incredibly well, at least. And I hope that y'all do stick around because we always have a lot of fun in the question segment. And you never know what we're going to talk about. Usually this is the funnest point because it can really go anywhere from here. The news is over, though. Just in case you were wondering that, there will be no more news that's covered on this show for the rest of the night. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night, it's now time to jump right into our super chats. We are fresh out of polls. We are clear of polls, even though we do love the polls very much. The polls have gone kind of silent, actually. Now that I mentioned that, it seems like they're kind of laying low over there, but we do love the polls very much. But jumping straight into our super chats, our first one here goes to Howard Turgell, and Howard put in a $50 support, and thank you very much, Howard, for that very generous support as well. And he said, it's time to send a message to Russia, enough of their bullying.
And I'd agree with you definitely, Howard Turgell. I think that that should be the message that's sent by shooting these drones down, and I would 100% agree with that. And I got to thank you incredibly for the massive support, Howard Turgell, because folks like you help this channel to keep on running. It is folks like Howard Turgell who go over their way to support this channel, even when they don't have to, and no one has to, that helps us to make this thing possible. They help us to pay our bills, to keep the lights on, and to buy that almighty $5 Costco chicken, because nobody can survive by bread alone, and everyone can survive with a Costco chicken. And it's only $5, and we're not sponsored by Costco, and it's truly incredible. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that I've addressed that the best that I possibly can. And a huge thanks to you once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling. And so, with that, we're about to be moving on into the next one. But before we do, I saw a live chat that just gathered my attention up, right on up, and I have to answer it. David Blampede said, I know you guys are big history buffs. Do you ever play Civilization games? Any thoughts? I actually have played one Civilization game, which was Civ 6. Didn't get the new one, and I haven't really heard good things about it. But generally everyone craps on the new Civs whenever they come out. But Civ 6 was pretty fun to me. But generally, the historical games that I play are different in their genre. Usually, I play transportation games that were historic, like Transport Fever. Transport Fever 2 was my favorite, and I bet Transport Fever 3 is going to be even better. And there are a couple of other games that I play that could be considered historic. But generally, they're usually some sort of like a tycoon or strategy game, kind of like Civ 6, but more so not nation building related. Hearts of Iron, I saw someone say Hearts of Iron 4. Hearts of Iron 4 is a good game to play, but I could only play it so many times before it got boring. Victoria 3 is more so my game because I like the vertical style instead of the wide style of gameplay that Hearts of Iron 4 supports. I really like Vic 3 because it allows for you to actually play a country like you would even play it right now in real life if you were actually leading one, which is more so facing the internal domestic matters head on and working with that, and then the foreign policy stuff is usually slow and tectonic and usually massive and incredibly expensive to undertake a war. So I really love Vic 3. Vic 3 is one of my favorite games in that sort of a category. But still, I hope that addresses that well, because I think Civ 6 was pretty damn good. I personally thought it was neat, and it was fun because it was a board game style game, so, you know, that made it fairly interesting. But, Matthew, do you have any games that interest you like that?
Me personally, I'm not a game player. Me personally, I like to keep it real, honestly. But no, seriously speaking, though, I don't really play a whole bunch of video games. I'm too busy with everything else, so I don't really play games that much. The only one I'll make an exception for is Grand Theft Auto 6. When it finally does come out, I'll actually play that one. But I'll probably be drafted before that ever comes out, so I'll probably have to put that off too. So you know, I'm waiting on it. I'm waiting, but I'm not very hopeful about it.
Well, hopefully we'll see GTA 6 come out soon, because I heard that they actually removed the release day from the website, and now it sounds like it's getting pushed back again. Yeah, it sounds like it. So, you know.
They have to scrap it if that's the case. I mean, they're pushing it back too many times now. Like, it's almost getting ridiculous at this point.
I'll be honest with you, man. Like, that whole GTA 6 thing has been pushed back so many times, I could care less about it at this point. Like, when it comes out, I'm actually not buying it. I'm just going to wait and see what other people say about it before I ever even consider getting it. And also, on top of that, folks, I got to be honest with y'all, Miami just isn't really a place that interests me too much. We went there in real life once, and we were there, I think, for 3 hours, and we were already done with it. Like, we were ready to leave. So I'm not really like one to be like, oh yeah, I can't wait to play a game where it's based in Miami. Like, I think they could have.
They still got the release date on there. It says May 26th of 2026.
Oh, that must have been a clickbait article that I saw today because I saw that and I was like, well, that's expected. And a lot of people were outraged under it, like the liars, the sons of, like, and they were going off. And so I was like, okay. I mean, honestly, man, they should have made a GTA in Memphis. Now that would have been a GTA to remember.
I wouldn't want to play that, honestly. That's a little too depressing.
Man, honestly, man, that would be tough. That would be tough. Let's think of where it would be interesting to have a GTA based out of that isn't LA or New York City. Where in the world would there be a place that would be interesting, Matthew? What's your pick?
If I had to pick a place to set GTA 6 in, I would have to probably pick. You couldn't pick Salt Lake City because it's too calm and peaceful here. So GTA 6 wouldn't work because the whole game's about crime. So it's got to be somewhere that's criminal, but it's also got like an interesting aspect to it. It's kind of hard to pick. Have they set one in New York? Like I think there was one that's been set in New York. That's probably where I'd pick.
Yeah, that I said excluding New York and LA.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Why do you exclude New York?
Because they're places that have already been done before.
Well, you can always do them again a little bit better than the last time, but they could pick. Let's see here. Let me think. They could pick Seattle.
Oh yeah, that would be an interesting one. You know what my pick would be?
What?
Chicago.
Yeah, it would actually be a pretty decent one, actually.
Yeah, that would be a pretty decent one. You got a really thriving kind of a downtown area, kind of like Los Angeles or Miami or New York City. And then you've got the slums, like O Block and all that. And I mean, that would be a really interesting place actually to have a GTA. Would be Chicago. That actually would be a wildly interesting place to have one. So maybe one day they will make a GTA that's in Chicago. Because honestly, folks, I don't think that would be a bad idea at all. That'd be a really interesting kind of a game to play. Or they could do one. Let's see, what would be another place they could do one that would be interesting? Oh, let's see here.
Scranton.
Boston.
Maybe.
Look,
I mean, come on, man. You'd have a lot of good characters to put in the Scranton version. I mean, corn pop, corn popping the straight razors on the side of the street. All that stuff.
Look, you get the game. You make it in Scranton.
Look. Everyone sat there. They thought I was joking when I said Scranton. You ever seen anyone get their guts cut open by a straight razor from Corn Pop and his gang of bad dudes? I bet you haven't. You really need to make that game in Scranton.
Anyways, look, a kid's got to ask if his dad is lost in the Allegheny looking for milk and cigarettes. Where is he? Where'd he go? Where's he coming back? He's got to come back. But beyond that, I would say, another interesting place to put GTA would be Philadelphia.
Yeah, but you got to have a little bit of a positive side to it. Like a little bit. I'm not bashing Philadelphia, but I mean, Philadelphia is pretty depressing. So, I mean, it's got to have something that makes people want to play. I'm not sure Philadelphia would have that edge.
Cleveland.
No, nobody would want to play Cleveland.
Yeah, that's true. Probably. That's true. Wait a minute. Houston, Texas.
Why don't we put them in the sandbox and let them play in the playground of Birmingham, Alabama?
Dude, a lot of people aren't going to come back from that mentally whole.
Yeah, they're probably end up suing over that.
Man, honestly. Oh, man. Let's see. Honestly, I really can't think.
Atlanta would be a good one, actually.
Oh, dude, Atlanta would be crazy, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, Atlanta was probably like the best candidate for the next one, actually, now that I think about it.
Man, Atlanta would be nuts. Man, imagine the chaos that would happen at the airport that they would make that would be Atlanta, but in the game. Imagine the chaos, because there is endless chaos at the GTA Los Santos International Airport all the time. Imagine that happening here.
Yeah, that would be crazy, honestly. That would be crazy.
Man, that would be nuts. That would be absolutely nuts. Or they could do Las Vegas. Someone just said that. That would be a pretty good one. They could do Las Vegas.
They could. That would be an interesting one. That would be fascinating. I think they ought to do an overseas GTA. I see someone saying Moscow. That would be pretty cool, actually. Like if they did like a GTA in Moscow, that would be pretty sick.
That would be pretty sick. That'd be pretty cool. But with that, folks, I hope that does address that the best we can. Just a crapshoot of ideas there. Really interesting ones, though. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the next one.
And our next one goes to Marion Deemer, who puts in a $50 support. And thank you very much, Marion, for that very generous support, as always, and helping to keep the channel running with that very generous support. And Marion said, it's great to have you back, and for the winter gear you will be needing.
And thank you so much for the support, Marion Deemer. And we will be needing winter gear. I will specifically be needing a snow shovel, because apparently it snows around here. And that's something that's scary to me. What is snow? How do you deal with it? How do you fight snow? That is a great deal of questions that I have, and I have no answers to them. For I am from the South, and snow knowledge is forbidden in the southern states. So for that matter, when it snows at any point, everyone just goes out in the streets and generally gets each other killed in car crashes. So I will have to learn about that out here, and that's something that is somewhat scary to me. But I do thank you so much for the support and the kind words, because the kind words mean a lot and encourage us to keep this thing running, and the support will help us to be able to get the snowshoes and the snow shovels, to be able to keep our thoroughfares clear and open for traffic. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Luke UK. And Luke throws in a generous $50 support as well. And a huge shout out to you, Luke, for also helping to keep the channel running. And he said, hello, enforcers. And great work as always. And please take a live chat question and LLT LSA.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, it's a wonderful thing to have you here. It's a wonderful thing to have you wanting to keep this channel running. And I gotta thank you greatly for that. I gotta thank you incredibly. And I have to say, a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. The best we possibly can. And I also gotta say, we will make sure to take a live chat question in your honor. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so the live chat question is going to go to Cyber, who said, does Russia even have the funds to test nuclear warheads? Honestly, Cyber, I don't really think they do, but at the same time, though, they've usually already spent the money on the warheads, so there's really no new cost involved with it, at least to a large extent. There's obviously always costs involved with launching weapons, but they've already bought the warheads and developed them, so they probably don't want to unload them like to that point, because they obviously need to have those in their stockpile. So they don't have the money to replenish the ones that they're testing. I guess I could put it that way. So they probably don't want to test them for that reason. That's probably why they're using the language that they might do a nuclear detonation, but they will definitely test the missiles, though. That's almost a certainty. But whether or not there's an actual nuclear detonation, that's up for debate. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would generally have to agree with Matthew on that. I don't really know if they actually have the money to be able to do that. The money is already spent, but there is some additional expense that has to be made in moving the vehicles, operating them, and yada, yada, yada. But it's not an incredibly large amount compared to the amount that's already been spent on the missiles. It's pretty much already paid for. But considering that they would have to replace the missile at some point, or at least they would have to consider replacing the missile at some point, that's what might limit them from actually using any nuclear weaponry, because the nuclear weaponry is some of the most expensive part of a nuclear missile for the greater extent of it. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Grand Moff Putin, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much for that support, by the way. They said, could NATO simply not agree to shoot down the drones when the Article 4 meeting convenes? And this would be a step below Article 5 in direct war, and it would also keep us from looking so weak.
I would say that they could. That's something that definitely can come out of an Article 4 consultation, is just agreeing that they will all shoot them down. And if that was the case, I think that would be the best move we could possibly make. It protects our airspace, it protects the economies of our nations, the security of our people, and also the security of our economies collectively by taking that action. And it's also a position of strength. And so I would have to agree with you. And so big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from Lego Joe. And thank you very much, Lego Joe, for that $20 support. He said the first one looks like the Tunkinsky National Park in Siberia.
And what was the first one that they spoke of?
I'm not, let's see here. I'm not really sure, to be honest. Lego Joe, let us know which one it is, because I'm not really sure which one you were referring to there, but let us know, and we can return back to it.
And I do thank you greatly for the support, and please do let us know, because we would love to circle back. It's just that we don't know the exact context of what the first one is at this point, because it's probably been lost to time on the stream. But still, a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the next one. Also, I saw someone say, didn't they create a GTA based in Russia? It was called Escape from Tarkov. Don't remind me of that game. That game was too realistic. It became unenjoyable, like entirely. It was pain and suffering, and I really don't like Tarkov at all. I used to like Tarkov because I used to be one of those people back when I was in high school that was like really obsessed with games having to be pretty much realistic as they can be, to the point that they may as well be real life. And then I played Tarkov for, I think, about a year and a half, and that completely changed my logic on video games. Then I was like, this sucks, and this is not fun. And video games ought to be fun, and this is not. So then I just turned around to hating Tarkov, and I was like, I'm not playing this game again. And I never have. And now I hear that it's generally full of hackers, and most people can't play it. So, you know, I guess I got out of that before it really went downhill. But yeah, Escape from Tarkov, like, I guess that is the Russian GTA, and it's not fun. I'll put it that way. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Our next one goes to Zyper Sniper 1, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Zyper Sniper, for that support and being a longtime channel legend. He said, coffee fun for the enforcers, and have you heard of a game called Worldwide Rush? And a question to the chat, please.
And I thank you so much for the support. And I have not heard of a game called Worldwide Rush. Let me go pull that up. Worldwide Rush. The game. Worldwide Rush. Let me take a look at this game. Worldwide Rush lets you experience passenger transportation and management on a global scale, expand your company, meet the growing travel demand, compete against other companies, and discover new continents with its unique vehicles. The entire world is yours to control. Oh, wow. That actually looks really cool. Oh, wow. That is really cool. Oh my god, I have never heard of this game. Hold up here. You just wait a minute. Now you got me interested. Now I have to look into this thing in detail. So it's from the same people who made Flycore. I've seen that game before. I've never played it, but I've seen it before, and it caught my interest a couple of times. Oh, wow. I gotta show you this game. This game actually looks really neat. Lets you experience passenger transportation, construct your headquarters, assemble a fleet of vehicles, and strategically connect cities with lucrative routes based on passenger demand. Huh. And there's rival companies. That is really cool. Rival companies. Now, that's something I like, is the competition side in the game. I always like competition. And I wish that Transport Fever 3, I know that they're not, but I would wish that Transport Fever 3 would actually have rival companies that could compete with you. Because that would be so cool, you know? That would be really neat to see. But that is really cool, actually. Now that you've told me about this, I'm actually going to take a picture of this thing on my phone, and I'm probably going to look into this heavily off air. So let me do that really quickly so I can remember this once we get off the air. But that is very interesting. I got to thank you so much for the support and sharing that information with us, because I actually had not heard about that game before, and that actually looks kind of cool. Well, actually, it looks really cool to me. I'm into those sorts of games. So huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Jeremy Vahill, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Jeremy, for that $10 support. He said, hey there, enforcers, and I'm a mail carrier. And today, while trying to open a mailbox, I smashed a large spider on my finger. Oh, dang. He said it was the worst experience of my life. And honestly, Jeremy, I'll be honest, like every time I used to go open the mailbox when we used to live in Alabama, I was always paranoid about opening the mailbox, because I've heard of like snakes crawling up in those things, and also obviously the spiders too, like you were encountering. So I was always paranoid. I would always like put a flashlight and look into the mailbox first, because I didn't want to put my hand in there and then pull my hand out and see a snake bite or something like that. So hopefully I didn't create a new fear for anybody out there, like opening their mailbox, but that was always a big concern of mine, because I had heard of it. And in the sticks, you got to watch out for snakes that crawl up in everywhere, because birds like to go make bird boxes and nests inside the like newspaper holder on a mailbox. But enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say, I thank you for the support, first off, and secondly, I have to say, I think that's a terrible experience that you had today. I just would not crush a spider with my finger. That would be terrible. I'd hate to do that. Not because I have any empathy for spiders. I don't like them, but I would hate to crush a spider with my finger. So I'd have to agree with you. That would be the worst experience for a while right there. And so I've got to say, I hate that you had to do that today. But I do have to say that your job is incredibly important, being a mail carrier. You are carrying the mail. That is a very important job. And I hope that you find the solace of the importance of your job to outweigh the horror of having to crush that spider with your finger. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And with that, folks, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
Also, by the way, apparently I did create new nightmares for people. I was wondering if I was the only one that thought that. I thought maybe everybody like looked in the mailbox before they opened it to make sure there wasn't a snake in it. Now, obviously, if you're in a city, there shouldn't be a snake in your mailbox because there's probably not any snakes like lurking around the concrete jungle of a city. But if you're in the sticks like we used to be, then the snakes will crawl right up the post, go right into the box, and be waiting on you the next time you come out there. So that was the bane of my existence. I was always looking out for snakes somewhere. Getting in the house, getting in the mailbox, getting in something, or even getting up in the car, like, crawling up in the engine bay or something like that, because they've done that too. I've heard of that. I just hate snakes. I really don't like snakes at all. I don't understand the people that keep snakes as pets either. I'm like, those things aren't pets. Those things are, I get rid of them personally. I don't like snakes, any of them. There's like some snakes that are maybe helpful, like the king snakes and stuff like that. But even those, I'm like, I could do without all of them. I just don't like snakes. But anyways, moving on to our next one here. This one goes to Dusty, and Dusty puts in a 10 and says, do you think China's move on Taiwan would be if we get bogged down with Venezuela? And I love the content and wanted to support.
And thank you so much for supporting. And I would generally say no. I think that if they have any sort of plan for an invasion, it's going to go ahead and happen at that exact time, whether or not we're tied up or not. That's generally what I'm thinking. Because right now, the limiting factor that has led them to not invade yet is the fact that they don't have enough equipment to be able to invade Taiwan, at least on the naval side. Once they have that, they're probably going to go ahead and start working towards invading. And that probably will be within a very short time frame. Whether or not we're involved, that will be to their benefit or their detriment, but they'll still try and conduct the invasion at the same time, nevertheless. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, based off what I would think the Chinese would do. And with that, a big thanks to you once again for the kind words and the support and going out of your way to support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 50 Canadian from none other than Bobby, also known as LP39A. And thank you very much, good sir, Bobby, for that 50 Canadian right there, all the way from Canada, of all places, which now we're closer to. He said, worst day for the spider, LOL.
Honestly, that spider had a bad day. It got squished. Honestly, spiders in my book have a bad day every day. I just don't like them. I know that they serve a very important function. I just don't like them, though. I don't like how they look. I don't like when they bite. I don't like any of that. I don't like any of that at all. And I got to say, a huge thanks to you for the support, Bobby. And unfortunately, not a good day for that spider. But it was a better day for Jeremy Vahill because at least he didn't get bit by it. So a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to make this thing rolling. All the way up in Canada, mind you. And also, I've got to say today, folks, I don't know what it is. I think it's the fact that I'm still recovering from the sickness, but I, for some reason, have just been dealing with, like, absolute exhaustion. Not even the nitro cold brew that I had tonight has helped me out at all with battling the exhaustion I'm dealing with. Really weird because, like, the sickness is going away, and earlier this morning I felt really good and got a lot done. And then later on in the day, I just started to feel really, really tired. Not sick and not really bad, just really tired. And also, Matthew, something I was just thinking? We took a walk around for a little bit there, and then I also started to feel a little bit tired after that. And I was like, I wonder if the altitude sickness thing hit me again after that.
Yeah, you could have called the bins.
I mean, I could have, I mean, you never know. You never know. I could have caught the bends. Man, and then I'm going to turn up. Oh, look, Jack, the spoons and the tape, and you got to ask a kid why he's got the syringe. Put it down. Yeah. But anyway.
if you want to create a real like sarcastic show, say, "Oh, you caught the Benz," and then have somebody pulling up in a Mercedes or something like that on the curb.
Oh, dude, that
Oh
was a
man, I'll
good
tell
one.
you what, I would make a mean cringy movie. Like if someone told me like here's like $1 million, make a cringy movie, I would make a hell of a cringy movie. I'd go down in the books for that movie. I tell you.
Man, you would be like in the film school. Someone would go, I'm a real film connoisseur. And they'd be like, well, what movie do you watch? And they'd be like, Farts in the Wind by Enforcer Matt. Like, or something. And
No,
it's
man, I'm
like,
telling you, I would create a franchise out of it. You know how they have like Scary Movie 1, 2, 3, 4? I'd make it Cringy Movie 1, 2, 3, 4, like, and have a whole like franchise of the thing. Honestly, nobody steal that. Like that, I reserved that. I registered, copyrighted, copyright protection, whatever the terms are, all the buzzwords. That's my idea right there. One day, Cringy Movie 1, 2, 3, 4 is coming out. I'm gonna make the whole franchise. I'm gonna have all the worst jokes in it. I'm gonna have the worst stuff. It's gonna be something else. Also, by the way, these bots, I don't know what's up with this. I saw someone earlier say they went over into a Russian channel or something like that and gave them the 1, 2, 3. I think they are coming back to get revenge, honestly, because it looks like they're coming in here crazy.
all of you are losers. All of you are losers. It's like, bruh, it's like, I think you're the loser, whoever the bot is like, you got so much free time. You're coming in here and doing that like 30 times over. It's like, you got to be a loser. You don't have a job at that point. It's like, that's sad. I mean, that's sad. Boo-hoo. The guy doesn't have a job. He needs to find one, really. But beyond that, I would have to, man, the bots really have been crazy tonight. And also, I got to say this: the number of people sometimes who've been giving us lip here tonight has also been crazy too. I'd like just to say this: if you don't like a facet about our show, like it's fine to not like everything, but it's another thing to act like complaining about it and acting like an asshole to us in the chat about it is going to fix it, because this is not Burger King. It's not have it your way. The show is the show. It's been running like this for 3.5 years. So if you don't like something about it, hopefully the rest of the show is better than the parts you don't like, so that way you can continue to watch it. Otherwise, there's nothing we can do about it. And I don't know why some people are acting like tonight's the night to complain, because I've seen some people like, God, you got to stop doing your stupid voices, you idiot. And I'm like, okay, one, that's how you get banned. It's like, two, we're not stopping them either. It's like, we've been doing them forever.
Surely you gotta understand.
Yeah, listen, I completely understand. And stop calling me Shirley. Like,
Shirley said, "Oh, I understand."
oh, I understand. Man, I gotta tell you, man, I wish we could do that whole skit I did about those kids beating up that poor creature that we were talking about off air from our childhood, man. Look, its eyes are popping out. Hit it again. Like I wish we could do that whole like thing, because honestly that was like a golden comedy skit right there, and we just did it on our own, freestyling together. No one else heard it, and it was a shame, folks, because we were talking about growing up in the South and how kids like were growing up as psychopaths back then already, and this whole thing that happened at this one birthday party that we went to, and I was like, man, I was like, that was crazy. And we did like a whole thing on it. We did a whole routine on it in the car, and we were dying laughing at it. And that moment's over. We can't recreate it. And I wish we had done that on air, because it was great. Also, another thing is I saw someone in the chat say, let's see here. Where in the world is it? Let's see. Someone said, sorry, that made me laugh. It's not Burger King. You can't have it your way. Deal. I say that a good here and there every once in a while. People get a good laugh out of that.
What's the Burger King statement?
Yeah, it's not Burger King. You can't have it your way.
I hate that statement, man. I hate it. I hate it so bad. I hate it because I remember I had a math teacher back in 12th grade that said that, and she was the most miserable person on the planet. Absolutely miserable. And she like trauma dumped on everybody 24/7 about everything she hated about her life. And she used to say, look, this isn't Burger King. You can't have it your way. And I was like, if I hear that one more freaking time, I'm going to
Which one was that?
Like drag myself across the pavement and drag myself out of this damn school. Say what?
Which one was that?
Oh, it's one that you wouldn't have known about. She left shortly afterward. I think she got so miserable she couldn't even do the job anymore.
Oh, Oh, dude, speaking of like crazy people, man, like that we happen to, experience or know growing up. Man, there's a guy, man, that you and me both know, and I'm not gonna say names or anything, but man, I think they've lost it. Like, I don't know what's up with it, but
It could be a lot of people.
I mean,
It
that
be a
could be
lot
a
of
lot of
people.
people, but I think they've like totally lost it, man, because to say this, folks, I keep this very much on the down low because I don't really like a lot of people trying to dig into my personal life off air. But I do have social media accounts, personal ones that I have off air that aren't related at all to the channel. And there are some people that are friended to these. And I was on one of them today. I'm not going to say which one, but I was on one of them. And on the little recommend thing, there was like a deal. And dude, I'm not kidding, man. Like, I watched it. It was like some music video thing, like saying like a song about how tough life is. It's basically like Caillou's "It's a hard knock life for us," but like grown up with cuss words in it and stuff for some reason. And like this dude, man, like it's someone that you and I both knew, was driving down a street in the middle of the night. I didn't even know where in the world he was, but he was firing a gun out of the window of the car while it was moving. And I was like, this is like insano stuff right here. I'm
That's
like,
somebody
I
we
don't,
went to school with?
huh?
You said somebody we went to school with?
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it's that, and I saw that and I was like, this is that kind of insano, reckless stuff that we just were familiar with growing up, and I don't really want to be familiar with it again anymore. And like, so I got to be honest with y'all, folks. I have like no attention span for any goofiness when I'm on my social media stuff. If I see someone, even if I knew them from a long time ago, a good bit, and they post something stupid on social media, I just unfriend them instantly because I'm like, I'm not here for that. I'm not here for this stupidity. I'm here for something else. Usually I'm looking at model trains, and I'm like, I'm not here to look at that. I'm here to look at model trains or something else that's interesting to me, not this stupidness. That's just absolutely insano. Like, and I see a lot of people like, wow, that's insano. And I'm like, yeah, it's insano. And we grew up around nothing but those people. Like, most of them were like that.
Also, by the way, I saw a person in the chat, Beerborn Medic, said people usually don't show signs of severe mental illness until over 20. Yeah, when I hit 20, I knew it was over. I'm just joking, by the way. But honestly, though, I feel like he's calling somebody out here. I don't know who he's calling out, but I'll tell you what. I think that is medically true, though. I think like if you're developing severe mental illness, it does start appearing strongly or more severely after the age of 20. So if you were already predisposed to something, you start really showing it around that point. So if you're going to be a little loony, the loony is going to come out a little bit extra around that little mark of your life there.
Yeah, I mean, really, I think that is the case. And also, I see I see someone say, I respect that no nonsense kind of guy. Yeah, I'm not really a nonsense kind of person anymore. Like there was someone else on a social media account. They extended a friend request, and I haven't talked to anyone from our high school in years. I graduated in 2020, and I pretty much haven't talked to anyone from high school except for I think one person for 5 years. And so I get a friend request from someone, and I was like, okay, yeah, I was like, I'll take it. And then it was just nothing but political stuff like that they posted, and it was in my feed every day, and it was the dumbest political takes I'd seen. Like I'm not really one for politics. I find most political takes dumb, but you really got to say something dumb for me to really sit there and go, wow, that is dumb. That is a really, really dumb political take. And so I sat there and looked at these takes for about 2 straight weeks. And I was like, I just had it. I was like, I cannot take this anymore. It's like, I'm not on social media for this. So I had to go and unfriend the person. And 2 weeks after I accepted their friend request, I was just like, I can't feel sorry for it. It's like, I'm not here for that. I'm not here to have their political opinions or their version of propaganda shoved down my throat. I'm like, I'm just not here for that. It's like, if I was, hell, I'd go join like, the young Democrats or the young Republicans or something if I wanted to hear that stuff. I'm not here for it, though, on my social media. That's just ridiculous. So with that, also, a lot of people are like, dang, you graduated in 2020? Yeah, I graduated in 2020. That was the senior year for me. That was the senior year of high school, 2019 to 2020 school year. And it ended early because of the whole little pandemic thing that came through the country. So it ended it early for me, and I just I believe I graduated pretty much technically in March instead of May, which is when I was supposed to graduate. And so Well, that was weird. And then I started college that summer. So really, there was no downtime at all. I went straight into college, remote online, and then knocked that out in about a little bit less than, I was like 3 years or a little bit less than 3 years, somewhere around there. And then went to law school and then dropped out of that because that sucked. And then we just went on into doing this full time. So, yeah, that's wild, folks, when you think about that. But what's even crazier, folks, to think about is that was still 5 years ago. Like, that seems like it wasn't long ago, but that was still 5 years ago. And crazily enough for us, that's been a long amount of time, 5 years ago. And it feels like it wasn't that long ago. So with that, we are on to the next one.
That sounded contradictory. That wasn't that long ago, but that was a long time ago. Man, that was a little big boat.
Man, honestly,
that
that's
was
one of
a
those political
long,
statements. Like,
that was a long little time ago. That was a tall, short building there. I tell you what, I like those contradictions like that. You gotta love those right there. It's a little confusing, a little bit like American foreign policy, you know, kind of like that. I like it when things conflict like that, when it doesn't involve life or death things, of course.
Man, I love that too. It's great. It's wonderful.
It's wonderful. It's fantastic. But anyways, jumping into our next super chat here. This one goes to Dunkel X, who puts in a $20 support, and thank you very much, Dunkel, for that $20 support. He said, "I wanted to say how happy I am to know you both are safe in Utah." And thank you, Dunkel. He said, "I prayed for you both," and thank you for that as well. He said, "My question is this: when is Enforcer Con happening in Utah?" And I'm playing Vicky 3 right now as Japan.
Oh,
Honestly,
cool.
Dunkel. Honestly, Dunkel, I'll tell you, whenever I see like something con, like, you know, like Comic Con or like Enforcer Con, like immediately, like the image that pops in my head is like a con artist or something like that. It's like Enforcer Con. It's like, I don't know why, because I know what it means. Obviously, it's convention, but it sounds like something bad. Like whenever I hear it, so no Enforcer Con, but maybe Enforcer Convention, maybe. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say an Enforcer Con. Now, we aren't dropping any cryptocurrencies anytime soon, folks. So we ain't doing that. We ain't doing that anytime soon. So there won't be an Enforcer Con happening. But an Enforcer Convention or an Enforcer Rally, I honestly want to think of it more as like an Enforcer Rally, because I have a feeling it would take almost more, not like politicals in the political sense, but like a political rally style to it, more so than anything, because I really wouldn't understand how to do it any other way, to be entirely honest, rather than just go up there and give some sort of a little grandstand speech and then shake hands and hopefully not get shot. That would be the goal. So that, I don't know when that would happen. We could work on it and see if it's possible someday, but I just don't know when we would be able to pull that off. But one day we will. We'll have to. So, we'll see. But it's still a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, that is super cool that you're playing Vic 3 as Japan. I can never figure out Japan. Like, I know that everyone's always like, oh, you just gotta, you know, get rid of the whole isolationist deal, and that's super easy. And look at each split. I never could do it, and it always annoyed me because I really wanted to play as Japan and try and create the Japanese empires that existed at least by 1905. I never even could get past getting off of the island, so that was very annoying to me every single time. So I gotta give you credit for that. That is really cool that you're playing Vic 3 as Japan. That is super neat. And so with that, a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. I hope that does address that quite well. And also, I saw someone in the chat say something. I gotta go try and get this. Let's see.
I got one from the chat right here, actually, since you grabbed one a second ago. I saw Hawk in 1986 say, "Do y'all have information that in Sudan, the rebels shot down a Russian plane and they killed 5 Russians?" And we did see that. I reported on that in the short war video earlier today. The Sudanese, one of the Sudanese factions actually shot down a Russian IL aircraft and apparently killed all the Russians on board. It was, I think it was accidental, but I wasn't very clear on that. But it looked like they did shoot down the Russian plane. So the Russians were trying to arm some of the Sudanese forces, and they ended up getting shot down by some of the other factions. So, you know, yeah, Russia took an L in Sudan today.
Yeah, a big L. Sounds like they're not going to be doing too well. Also, folks, we just don't really cover Sudanese civil war news much at all. And some people are like, why? Way back when it first started, we covered it on day one, and it was so confusing to most everyone, including ourselves. Everyone hated it, so we just never covered it again. That's why it's not covered. So I hope that does address that well, at least why we don't really cover that on a day-to-day here. And let's see. There was someone in the chat. I gotta see here. Someone in the chat said something really thought-provoking earlier, and I gotta find it. Let's see here. Let's see. Someone said, let's see. Someone said, let's see. I remember the law school era. That was a long time ago. It really does feel like it was forever ago. And someone was talking about, actually, here it is. Adam G said, I actually got angry at my friend from high school for inviting me to his reunion. He was setting up, mate, I haven't seen you in 10 years. Why would I want to be part of anything you do? LOL. You know, that's something that is quite weird to me. And I'll be honest, like, here's how I've been dealing with that recently. Like, we do our thing. And I'll be honest with y'all, nobody treated us good in high school. Like, some people kind of treated us slightly nice, but they weren't our friends. I mean, like, they had nothing to do with us rather than just, saying like a nice hey every once in a while when they would pass us by or ask us for a pencil or something. Nobody ever had anything to do with me, except for one friend, and I still talk to him to this day. He's the only friend I have from high school. But everyone else had, like, nothing to do with me. The only time they were nice to me is when they needed help with history work or something, and then after high school was over, I fell off the face of the earth for all of them. They never talked to me ever again. And so 5 years later and stuff, they send you a friend request. And, well, they send me a friend request. And at first, like, when this first started about a year and a half ago, I used to be like, oh, that's pretty cool. Maybe they want to catch up. And this is all that would happen. It's one of two things. Either they friend you and they just never talk to you, which then at that point, I'll get to what it is here in a second, but the second one will prove what the first one is. The second one is that they'll send you a friend request, and then I'll accept it. And then they message you, oh, hey, are you running a big YouTube channel now? And you go, yeah, I am. And then they never answer you again, and then they just keep you friended. So basically what everyone's been doing, or at least what I assume they're doing at this point, is that they find out that we run this YouTube channel, and then they friend us. And then they so that way they can sit there and eventually say, this big YouTuber guy on YouTube, do you happen to know him? And then someone might go, yeah, and then they can go, look, I'm friended to him, and that's it. Yeah. It's just a bragging right. So at this point, whenever I get friend requests from anyone that I haven't talked to from high school from years ago, I reject them because I'm just like, I just think that's weird. It's like, I don't even really know you anymore. It's like, I haven't known you for 5 years. Hell, I hardly knew you in high school. And it's like the only reason you're friending us is so that way you could sit there and have a bragging right with people you actually know and say that you know us. And it's like, that's just weird. It's like, I'm not going to be a part of that.
Yeah, honestly, I have my own little experience with that too. I remember a old friend I hadn't talked to in a long time. They messaged me and they said they wanted ketchup. So I gave them mustard. That's so bad.
Man.
I had to say it.
All right, everyone.
I couldn't let it go. It was in my head. You can understand how much I would not have been able to sleep tonight if I had not said that. But it was so damn bad, though.
All right, everyone. It's been a great night. It's been a great night, folks. We're gonna get off air. I'm just kidding. But still, I gotta say, folks, that is something that is really, really bizarre, like about that whole deal. And then also, like, I gotta be honest with y'all, folks, it starts to make social interactions, especially with people that you once knew, a lot more transactional than you like them to be. Because when you sit there and think about these folks, you never sit there and think, oh, they're reaching out because they thought, maybe I was cool in school. No, they're not at all doing that for that reason. They just want to ask you if you're famous or not or something. And then after they've confirmed that you are, then they just never talk to you again. It's like, why in the world even reach out? It's like, and at this point, like, just, being straight up, it's like, I didn't even know them hardly in high school. And they also, most of them weren't even that nice. Like, it's like, why in the world would I do anything, accept a friend request at this point? That makes no sense. But anyways.
I didn't have to worry about them being nice because I was in charge.
Man, I was in charge.
I used to work in a shoe factory, and now I'm in charge.
Glory
But
to
no,
the
honestly,
darkness of
that
the
kind of
world.
actually got me a lot more ire, being in charge. And when I say in charge, it was of JRTC. That was the thing I was involved with in high school. So I actually got a lot of ire in my way because I actually took it seriously. I wasn't like the JRTC kid running around like, going overboard or something like that. But I was trying to like actually do the thing properly and run it right. And I was not received well by the instructors, nor was I received well by the students. Nobody wanted to do anything right. And I eventually learned, oh, they don't want to do it right. And I sort of like took a step back and I was like, okay,
Oh man.
they don't want to run it right.
Man, I'll tell you all this, folks. I remember Matthew actually was the battalion commander of our little JROTC group in my third year in it. And I was the company commander of a little company in this JROTC thing in school. And this was the most annoying thing. Well, I'll tell you all this story because this was it for me. Like, Matthew and me weren't the people who were like, I'm a future army soldier. Honestly, at this point, I started to kind of realize that this was the reason why I didn't want to be in the military. Like, to be entirely honest with y'all, was how GRTC was being run. So I was sitting there and I was like, like, it's fun to do. And, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it well, and that's the mindset Matthew had too. So Matthew created that year when I became a company commander, this thing called the Company of the Year Award, which is where every single month there would be a company picked, and there was, I think, 4 of them: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta, and I was the company commander of Charlie Company. And out of those 4, every single month, they get an award. And at Christmas, whoever had the most awards built up by that point would get a pizza party. And then at the end of the year, they get an even larger reward, maybe an even bigger pizza party or something like that. That was the plan, at least. So I was like, all right, we are going to win this thing. So I went into my like little company of folks. Like, I was like in 11th grade at that point, and everyone in there is like in 9th grade. So I was giving them all of these speeches, getting them on board. I mean, like kids, like folks, I'm not even kidding. Kids who would have never been into that program, I was getting them into the program and they were doing well. And we were winning company of the months over and over. And then one of the instructors just went, you know what? I don't like that your company's winning it over and over. This is basically the explanation. I don't like that one company's winning it over and over, so we're not doing this anymore, and they're still not getting a pizza party. We're just not going to follow through on that. And I was just like, I put in a lot of work into my company in particular, like getting it to this point to where it's the best. And then on top of that, all of these kids, like all like the 30 kids that are listening to me here, I got them all on board with this thing when a lot of them thought it was stupid and a joke at the start because there was an incentive at the end of the tunnel. And so, and then Matthew put all the effort into coming up with this thing. And I was like, all this just got crushed like 3 months in.
Man.
So,
Well, you didn't get to see all the aftermath though, like because on the leadership side of the whole situation, so since I was the one trying to implement it, there was major fallout after the thing went sideways and the guy backed out of his promise. Major flack because then there was arguments that ensued. There was a whole thing over that. So honestly, that was the moment I was like, okay, like they're not wanting to run this right. I'm like, if I'm a student and I'm like, I think I was like 19 or 18 at the time or something. I'm like, if I'm trying to run this right as an 18 or 19-year-old and the guy that's in charge is like 50 something years old and he doesn't even want to run it right, it's like, what am I doing? It's like, hell, I'm a student here. I'm not even in charge of it technically. I'm just here, like I'm a token in charge basically. Like I'm not really in charge, but I'm like the student in charge of it. So I was like, yeah, forget it then. I was like, if nobody wants to run it right, then it's just the way it is.
and so,
But I
and,
still put up the academic team though. Like you gotta admit, I was
oh yeah,
sweeping those
we were.
trophies on the academic team. We were winning everything.
Yeah, I mean, we were slaughtering that year, man. Like we were absolutely slaughtering. But still, folks, after that happened, I sat there and that the this particular instructor broke that news to my whole little company of folks. And so then right after that, we went outside and I had them all gather together and I told them this. Okay, look, folks, we just did everything by the book. It's messed up that they just completely revoked that. And I'm going to be honest with y'all, folks, I've completely lost motivation. If y'all have too, that's totally fine. So y'all do whatever the hell y'all want for the rest of the year. I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want for the rest of the year. And we're just going to make it through. And I just told them that. So they did whatever the hell they wanted. And then that instructor, like, by the way, that instructor wanted to not like the idea of incentivizing people to actually do good and follow what the program's supposed to be. So then after everyone gives up because they've completely lost motivation, including myself, then he wants to start kind of putting a burner on my ass to start doing things right again. And I'm just like, whatever, man. I'm like, and throughout the rest of the year, I was just kind of giving static at that point. I was just like, whatever. I'm like, there's no point in even doing it right anyways. It's like the incentive was completely removed anyways for everyone. And then at the end of that year, I told him I'm out. I was like, I'm just not doing this again. This is a waste of time. Because it's like if there's no real point or incentive or anything to win at the end of the tunnel, what's the point of doing it at all? Like that was my logic
Did you
behind
get
it.
the enlistment certificate? Because you got to let 3.
Yeah, you get it at let 3.
Oh, you get the E3 boost if you enlist.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was at the 3rd year or the 4th year you got that, but yeah, apparently it's at the 3rd.
Yeah, you get it at the 3rd year, and honestly, it wouldn't have mattered because I was medically disqualified anyways from serving really at all. So, like, and also that was another thing. I was like, I can't even serve if I really wanted to at this point. So, it's like, I got the thing anyways. So, I could still go in as an E3 or whatever, but it's like, what would be the point? I can't even get in. So, it was ridiculous, folks. It was truly ridiculous with that. That was a learning lesson, though, folks. That was a learning lesson. And someone said you encountered toxic leadership. Yeah, I mean, like, I guess that would be the textbook definition of that.
Yep.
And then of course everyone around you wants to like pull you down. Like all the other students that were in the program, they want to pull you down because you're just trying to be a little bit competitive. Like, and people hated that. Like, people absolutely hated that.
Could y'all imagine just me, little old Matt, trying to run a whole JRTC program and having the students and the instructors sort of stacked against me and even against the odds? Little Matt still trying to pull it out, still trying to do it right. And at the same time, it honestly, like, I will say this though, like, it did work. Like, it did work because, like, we were sweeping the academic team. I honestly don't know what the deal was. I don't know if it was the personality or what. I don't know what the deal was, but for some reason, I got a lot of flack. Like, I'm not even sure why. I'm like, I wasn't even being nasty to anybody either. I was like, I just got a lot of flack for that thing. I still got put in charge, but I wasn't having an easy time either. It seemed like literally I was getting flack from every angle.
Man, and there was this other stupid story, folks. Like, there was, honestly, the amount of dumb JROTC stories. I'll be honest with y'all, folks. I think JROTC, these days at least, is probably the #1 tool that teaches a lot of young kids growing up that they don't want to touch the military. I'll be entirely honest with y'all. Because for a lot of kids, that's the first touch point they have with anything that even gets slightly close to the military. And the JROTC is hardly a drop in the bucket of what the military actually is. But it taught a lot of kids, and I remember this, it taught loads of kids, the last thing you want to do is go join the military, because if it's anything like this, it's not even worth it. It's not even worth the money or the benefits that they talk about. It's worth none of it. And this was one that was absolutely stupid. There was this girl in the program that would just run her mouth at me all the time, endlessly, in front of everyone, and it wouldn't matter what. And I would deal with it because I was like, I just don't want to create an issue here. And so finally one day I just got tired of it, and I looked over at this girl because I said something. And this girl made a smart comment again. And this was like 3 years of dealing with it at this point. I was like, I'm just tired of this. So I looked over and I said, so-and-so, could you shut the hell up? And she immediately stopped. Like, this is the first time I ever said anything that was slightly rude. She immediately stopped and then just started crying, bawling. So then that instructor, by the way, who got rid of the Company of the Month award, he then comes in and tells me that I've got to apologize or he's going to demote me. And so I said, wait a minute. I said, you've seen her running her mouth at me for years now. You've done nothing. So now that I sat there and finally responded once, I got to apologize or I'm going to get demoted. He was like, yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles. And that was another thing. I was like, screw this program. I was like, this is completely pointless at this point. This is stupid. This is the damn dumbest thing that I could have ever done. I was like, I could have been in robotics.
And then the weirdest part was that girl that was bad-mouthing you and running her mouth and stuff like that, for whatever reason, liked me a lot for whatever reason. I did not like her, but she had a very big mouth, like running her mouth at literally everybody, but constantly, just like, yeah, constantly. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I can't take this anymore. I can't take it. But for whatever reason, though, she was running her mouth to literally everybody, but she wouldn't run her mouth to me because I think she liked me or something. But I was like, oh my God. Like she would like run her mouth at Andrew bad. Like, I don't even know why. It's just weird. Like, some people do not mess mesh with other people at all, like at all. Like sometimes, like some people will get along with one person really well, and they won't get along with the next person good at all. It's just fascinating. Honestly, managing people is probably one of the hardest things you can possibly do. There, you can be like an engineer, you can be a rocket scientist. I would say managing people is one of the most complicated things you can possibly do because people are very complicated and also very complex, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's something that I really wouldn't want to deal with too much. And then another thing, this was another thing that happened towards the end of it. Is that I was offered this little like, and this is all like pointless actually. Like when you look back at it, just to put this out there, folks, this whole thing is pointless. Like the whole GROTC deal, it's completely pointless from top to bottom. Like when you actually look at it and what it is and what it does, I don't really get it. And so I was at the end of my third year, I was offered the Battalion XO spot, which is the second highest spot. And I said, who in the world's going to be in the first spot? And it was some other girl, and some other girl that absolutely hated my guts too for some reason. And I was like, hell no. I was like, I'm not doing that. I was like, I am not coming back to this program. I was already certain. I had already told Matthew, I was like, I don't care what they give me. I don't care if they give me the highest position. I'm not going to be here. But I had to go through the whole deal of them offering it and then refusing it. But that I'll be honest with y'all, folks. The GROTC experience. If I went back in time and I had to pick something to do in high school, I wouldn't have picked the band because the band guy was psychotic. Like he had people pretty much passing out from heat stroke in the middle of a football field in practice. I'm like, that's just stupid. I would have probably just done robotics or something. That seemed pretty fun. But I would have never done JROTC again. Absolutely not. That was a complete waste of time. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Zyper Sniper 1, who puts in a 20 as well. And thank you very much, Zyper, for that $20 support. He said a food fund for the enforcers. And if you like hunting games, then I can recommend the Hunter Call of the Wild.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. I've actually heard of that game before. I actually know a couple of people who play it. And I gotta thank you so much for the support and also helping us to have the food fund. We gotta have food, and we love food. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and keep this thing rolling. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, a big shout out to Zen Trader, who put in a $6 support, and also My Hands Are on Fire for putting in a 5 as well. And thank you both, Zen and My Hands Are on Fire, for that support. And also a big shout out to The Wisdom to Know, who put in a 5. And we appreciate all three of you very much for that support and also helping to keep the channel running. And we also have a 5 from Spice Mustard, who said, could there be another option and not playing our defensive hand too soon?
There could be, really no other option, at least with the drones. They just have to be shot down, because because right now the only other action is the passive action we're taking, which is doing nothing, or we shoot them down. There's really no third option in between the two with dealing with the drones. So basically we have to shoot them down. That's the only other option we have, and it's the one we haven't taken yet. And so I hope that has addressed it the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Difflin3246. He said, did you hear about the Chinese embassy and the U.S. official Twitter account posting satellite images of different landmarks in Taiwan, saying Taiwan is China?
Actually, I had. That's nothing that's incredibly new. The Chinese are very aggressive on their foreign ministry accounts about how Taiwan is not Taiwan, it's China. And that is that's interesting, but nothing particularly new. That's a very big part of communist Chinese foreign policy. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep running, because it is folks like you that help to make this thing possible and keep it rolling. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a $10 support from Measureman, and he said, we really don't have snakes in Sweden, I think that is, but I'll be checking my mailbox carefully going forward. Honestly, I would. And also, I don't think is that Sweden, by the way? Is Measureman putting in a Swedish flag?
Let me take a little gander here. Measureman. That is Sweden. You are correct.
Okay, I'm just making sure here because I was getting mixed up for a minute there. For some reason, I was thinking Finland, but I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Sweden. But honestly, I don't think y'all have any real snakes in Sweden. Like, if y'all have snakes, I'd be shocked.
Snakes in Sweden.
And also, he says, my hair looking okay?
Yeah, your hair looks fine to me. Oh, they have Dude, they have the smooth snake. They have that smooth snake.
The hell? What is that? Is it poisonous?
It's a smooth snake. It does look
It
smooth.
looks like non-venomous.
Man, that thing looks like those little wooden snakes that you get as a kid.
Yeah, it kind of does. Is it non-venomous though? It kind of looks non-venomous.
Oh yeah, it is non-venomous.
Yeah, usually the triangle head indicates a poisonous snake. This has more of a round head. Although it's a grass snake right there. I think that is poisonous.
Let's see here.
Is that a deadly bastard?
No, this one's non-venomous too.
Oh, okay. It's just angry.
Man, that one's kind of like happy though, man. It's kind of got its mouth just open like, man, it's like, okay. And then they also have the common European viper, also known as the adder, which is fairly
Let's
common.
see what that looks like. I want to see that.
Let me see here.
The adder.
The adder. Here it is.
Wasn't there like a cartoon or like a comedy show like called The Adder?
Yeah, the black adder.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was that fellow, that John Cheese fellow.
John Cheese. No, that's not John Cleese. Dude, that was the guy who did Mr. Bean. It was Rowan Atkinson as the Blackadder.
That was Mr. Beast.
Mr. Bean, man, Mr. Bean, Mr. Bean,
Mr. Bean.
Man,
Rowan Atkinson, you're talking about.
Man, it was Mr. Bean. It was Mr. freaking Bean. But dude, the smooth snake is pretty cool though. I think that thing is goated.
Also, by the way, someone said not deadly, just poisonous. How poisonous are we talking here? Like, are we talking about like a lot or like a little?
Let's see here. Let's go take a look at the adder. This is the poisonous snake of Europe.
That thing looks deadly. I'm not gonna lie. That thing looks bastard thing right there. I don't like that.
Man, I don't like that thing either. I
Oh,
don't
look
like
at those. A demon-looking creature.
a demon-looking creature. Man, it's like a demon creature. The snakes of Britain. You have the adder, the smooth snake, the grass snake, and then a member of parliament. They didn't include that here, but they are on the list.
Damn.
Man, yeah, you know, and then depending on your political affiliation, the prime minister can also be included on this chart as well occasionally. But really, something quite interesting. So basically, Britain has the same snakes as Sweden does, actually.
So Sweden has the adder as well.
Yeah, you know, there are no snakes in Ireland. Did you know that?
Yeah, but you know, countries like Britain has the adder, Sweden has the adder, but in some places like Ireland, where they have an absence of snake, they have the subtractor that comes in. They got to watch out for that one.
Man, that one's got a Glock for a tail. Like,
You got to watch out for the subtractors. Those are gangbangers.
man, darling dear, the subtractor is in the doorway in my house in Galway. Bam, bam. It's like, oh
Those
my
damn
god,
mathematical snakes.
man! I tell you, man, that one's gonna kill me right there. That one's gonna kill me over. Man, you gotta find those snakes in Sligo right here.
Yeah, I tell you, what's it called?
Sligo.
Interesting.
It's a neat looking town, actually.
Ugh, yeah, I don't know about the water, but it looks like a neat town though.
Dude, the water's fine. Look at that.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't get in it.
The water is fine, dude. It's got little reeds in it. It's clean. The reeds are cleaning it out. It's clean. I mean, the reeds wouldn't be alive down there if the water was bad off. They'd all be dead.
Possibly so, possibly.
Possibly. Yeah, that's a given fact. It's the law. Also, man, that looks really cool.
That does look cool.
Man.
You know, I've seen people jumping off of those things and into the water like that. You have to be crazy to do that, by the way. I don't understand the people that try that, but like I just don't understand people that do that. I was watching some video yesterday of these people that do the high jump into the water, like off these Olympic like platforms and stuff. I just don't understand how people have the courage to do that. It seems crazy.
Man, honestly, man, that is really crazy. I would be terrified to do something like that, really. They got a lot of courage, you know. And also, Matthew, have you seen that guy, man, who was like, you know, let 1,000 blossoms bloom, but I ain't gonna sit there for a minute. I mean, you know, and he did that whole deal. Did you see him recently? Someone asked him, speaking of Australia, because I saw someone bring this up in Australia, Did you
about
see
his
that?
Lebanese heritage.
Yeah, and he was like, "Don't say that! I punched blokes in the mouth for saying that." And he like went off. He went off, dude. It was hilarious.
You won't find him sponsored by Ancestry.com.
Don't say that! I punched blokes in the mouth for saying that. Man, he was enraged.
They're like, "Sir, would you like to see your ancestry report?" He looks at it. "Get this paper away from me. I punched bastards in the mouth for less than this."
Man, he said, "Oh, don't say that." Man, he looked at that paper and went off. Man, dude, 23andMe, watch out. Like, he's coming for you. He's going to get you.
I didn't even understand what was so bad about it. It's like, well, I mean, even if you do have ancestors from Lebanon, what's so sinful about that? It's like, why is it so offensive? It's like, I don't understand it. That guy seems like he might be a little unhinged. I'm not an Australian. I don't know anything about him, but he seems like he could be a little off his rocker a little bit.
Dude, he's unhinged, absolutely. Like, there's no doubt about it. He's straight up unhinged. Because, I was listening to him talk about some other stuff the other day. I completely forgot what it was. But he does that whole, like, rambling thing and then getting angry about something else on everything. Like they'll sit there and ask him, "Excuse me, sir, what do you think about this and that?" And he'll be like, "Oh, I think that's great. I'd eat a meat pie any day. But I'm not going to see it for another damn minute because out in Western Australia." And he's, like, going off on nothing. Like, it's like, he does that on everything. And I'm like, this guy seems very unstable.
Yeah, it sounds like he's a little bit crazy, honestly.
Man, honestly, man, I wouldn't vote for him. I would not vote for him. That's not a political take. I just don't vote for mentally unstable people. That's just like a principle of things. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that well. Really weird aside, but had to do it. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next ones go to Damian McClay and also Plazoth and Connor Bowles, who each put in a $1 support. And thank you all three, Damian, Plazoth, and Connor, for that support right there. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And it's now time, folks, to jump into our live chat questions proper and our Morse decoders of the night. And also, I heard the enforcer say something, but he blurred out. What were you saying?
I said, "Huh? We're already out of super chats."
Yes, we're already out of super chats right now. We're jumping right into
that. Oh, don't say that! I punch blokes in the mouth and say that, man. Man, I'm just kidding with you. I can't believe that, though. That's like way ahead of time.
It is. It's actually just right on time, actually, because we have a lot of good live chat questions to get to. So, jumping into our Morse code decoders of the night, we had Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Arabelle Garbo, Her Royal Fluffiness, Kush, Cubioteric Sire, Brian Blairstown, the entire roster. And they said the Morse code says it's barbaric to threaten to officially nuke a country as a joke of some sort, and LLT, LSA.
And and that's the sound of money. Y'all got the dent on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. Now I got to congratulate y'all greatly for getting that correct, because y'all are always getting that correct time and time again. And that is truly an amazing and profound sort of a thing. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well to the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps. That is the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps, special to the Lee Spring Army. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on into those live chat questions. And Matthew, what do we got?
Also, by the way, since you went on that rant about the guy saying something about blokes, has anybody ever wondered like where the word bloke came from? It's like, what the hell is a bloke? Like when they say, "Oh, that bloke over there," it's like, what does that mean? So I was trying to do some quick research on it. Bloke is a slang term for a common man in the United Kingdom. I'm not sure if that's like denigrating somebody. What they mean by a common man, but let's see here. It's a London slang term. The word's origin is unknown, so that's not helpful. In Australia, a bloke is a unique masculine archetype associated with the country's national identity. So an Aussie bloke has been portrayed in important works of art and associated with famous Australian men. When they say he's a good bloke, it literally means he's a good man. So interesting. So it literally means nothing. Like there's nothing, like there's no history behind the word really or anything. It's just like people accept it just means a man, a common man actually. So interesting right there. Seems to be Australia like really like took that word off, which is kind of fascinating. Also someone saying, let's see, it's just a guy or a fella. Yeah, but I was wondering what the history was behind the name, like the word bloke, because I've never really heard of it. Someone said, "What's up?" Oh, no, I can't say that.
I
Saw
like
what that person said in the chat.
Yeah, I see it. I see it. I ain't gonna read it.
Let's see here. What is that? Let's see here. Hold on just a second. I'm doing some research here. English heritage research. Let's see here. A WANKER is a contemptible or obnoxious person, or a person, well, I can't say the second definition there, but I think everybody can sort of like fill in the blank. It's a I can't read any of this, but it's hilarious. Interesting. I'm just going to move on from that. I can't say anything about it, so let's move on from that. But moving into our first live chat question, this one goes to Randall Wells, who said, "Why is giving Belarus the nuclear missile not breaking the proliferation treaty?"
They're technically not given the nuclear missile. It's just that Russia is stationing the missiles in Belarus, and for that reason, it does not violate the proliferation treaty. So I hope that does answer that well. Great question, by the way. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to John Boy, who said, "Anybody remember the drones over the United States?" And nobody shot any of those down when they were here.
Well, that's because they were ours, old boy. They were ours. We just didn't want to say that because no one was really supposed to notice them, and then everyone did, and then we went, "Oh, damn, what do we do?" So then we just pretended like they weren't ours, but they were ours. They were ours. And so I hope it does address that well. And also, man, I hope you see we have two more super chats. Two super chats that came in. Blessed us be. But what do we have, Matthew? What do we have?
So our next super chat goes to Jeremy Vahill, who threw in a 5, and he said, "How did the Hot Dog Man earn the nickname of Hot Dog Man?"
Oh,
let me take this one. Let me take this one. This one right here is a fascinating one. The Hot Dog Man got that name because we did not want to give one of the detractors, more like harasser of the channel, who's a competitor. Well, I'm calling him a competitor is generous, but more like a person who kind of calls himself a journalist, but he's really not. He's kind of just like a poser. He harassed the hell out of us back in the day, a long time ago now. And he told a story one time about how he used to work at a hot dog stand or something.
At a fair.
And he was making... Yeah, the fair, actually. He worked at the fair selling hot dogs. I think that was the story. And he was making it seem like he really took a big job, like he took a career as the hot dog salesperson. And we were like, why is he making such a big deal out of selling hot dogs? He's acting like he just took a job at a corporate office or something. But he was making a huge deal out of it. He was overblowing it, saying, "Oh man, they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I had to take it." So he went to go work at the hot dog stand, and somehow he ended up not working at the hot dog stand. I'm not sure if he got fired, if he quit, or what happened. He probably couldn't make it as the hot dog salesman. That's probably too big of a position for him. But that's how he got the name, basically. He was associated with some job at the fair where he sold hot dogs, and then he suddenly started calling himself a journalist. But Enforcer, what say you?
So, the story of the Hot Dog Man is quite an interesting one. Way back in the day, a long time ago, there was this man who had copied and pretty much plagiarized not only our intro card, but our thumbnail. And that would seem like quite a stretch, but we actually still have the email where he said that he did that. But anyways, he did that, and someone brought it to our attention. And so I said on the stream one day, I said, there is a YouTuber out there. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to create this into a public beef, but they know who they are, and they're copying our thumbnail and our intro card, and I don't really like that. And so I just left it at that. So this guy decided that he needed to personally address that and say that he was the guy who was being accused of the plagiarism, which that's like throwing a rock into a pack of dogs, and the one that yelps is the one that got hit. He's obviously the one who was plagiarizing it. So he sits there and says, "Well, why in the world did you say it like that? You could have just told me over email. I didn't even say his name, so why in the world even email him?" It's like it was an anonymous shout out. So anyways, the guy after that decides to go on a smear campaign against us. So then we tell him, hey, let's just calm it down and let's bury the hatchet. Although there's no hatchet to bury, it's more like stop plagiarizing our stuff and also acting like the victim. So anyways, he drops it for a little while. Then he couldn't come on our show as a guest for a million different reasons. So then he went right back to bashing us and harassing us for like insane lengths. Pretty much, insinuating that he was going to get us hurt, trying to get us hurt, encouraging his viewers to try and harm or kill us, all that sort of crazy stuff. And that went on for a good while. Fast forward a little while, he sits there and says to his community, "Okay, everyone," and this is how he legitimately talks, by the way,
okay, everyone, I'm gonna go get off air now because I have to go to the fair. I'm working at the hot dog stand. And we went, the hot dog stand? We were like, what the hell? And then he was like, look, guys, the guy who runs the hot dog stand, he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And we were like, what the hell? Bro, it's a hot dog stand. You're selling hot dogs to the hot dog stand. So after that, that was so stupid that he made it sound like he was given a multi-million-dollar contract to sell hot dogs, like he's like the sham wow man of hot dogs. So that was so stupid that I think I was the one who coined the moniker the hot dog man on the guy, or Matthew did. It was either of us. I think we may have come up with it at the same time. But the next time we got on air, we started to call the guy the hot dog man. And so later on, way down the saga, he made like some sort of an address video about us and then called himself the hot dog man. So the whole thing came full circle. It was like hot dog exception. Like he went from denying it to he became it, just because we kept saying it. That was...
He was always the hot dog man the whole time. He had it in his soul. Like he finally accepted it. Like he finally came out and accepted it for what it was. He said, I am the hot dog man, but he had it in him the whole time. Like he was always the hot dog man. It just took him a long time to find himself. That was all.
Yeah, it really did take him a time to find himself. But beyond that, that's where he got the name the hot dog man. Did he make the cut of the hot dog stand? Apparently not. Apparently the offer that he couldn't refuse was apparently a position that they could refuse him, because he was apparently bad at it, and they either fired him or he quit or something, because he wasn't fair. He wasn't Carney standards. He didn't even reach Carney standards. Now that's something new, folks. When you can't make it at the carnival and you can't make it as a carny, you got issues. You got really bad issues there. But that is generally the story of the hot dog man and where that whole name came from. So I thank you so much for the support, and I hope that does address that the best that we can, at least with how that whole story works. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to the Wanderer, who said, what are the chances of a nuclear exchange over the next 3 years or so? What would you say are the chances?
I would say it's always hard to give a percentage chance, especially over a long period like that. But I would certainly say that compared to the past 20 years, the chances are certainly going to be increasing. To what degree, I can't say. But they certainly are going to be increasing, and the chances of it are going to be becoming a little bit more prevalent. But I really don't feel comfortable giving an exact figure on that, but I would say that it's definitely an increasing chance. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best that we can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to none other than Today HH, who said, do you guys think the U.S. will really invade Venezuela?
I think it's going to happen at some point. I don't think it's out of the question anymore, especially now that the Russians are supporting them with arms and weaponry. I think that that's going to make it an inevitable certainty that we will physically invade Venezuela, because now this is going to end up becoming an actual serious national security threat that is now coalescing right now. So I hope that has addressed it the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Elwood, who said, getting back to policy, what are the negative outcomes to the U.S. Special Forces operating in Mexico? And honestly, Elwood, the only thing that can really come negative out of it, in my personal opinion, is the Mexican government gets at odds with the United States and they start causing issues with our trade agreements. Mainly, the only thing Mexico can do to the United States is basically screw with us through economic means. And we do have a lot of trade with Mexico, so that's a real concern. But at the same time, though, there's really nothing militarily Mexico could do to harm the United States in reality, but they hold a lot of leverage economically. So we need their permission to be there, and just sending U.S. Special Forces in without permission to Mexico would probably end in a diplomatic disaster. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that sending them in without permission will be an unmitigated disaster, because not only does that mean that the Mexican military might end up shooting at them because they don't know they're there, and they didn't get any approval when they're technically not supposed to be there, they're violating the sovereignty of Mexico. That could also end up causing a lot of issues with Mexico itself as a nation, which is, I believe, if I remember correctly, the second largest trading partner we have as an individual country. Let me check that. U.S. trade partners. Because Mexico is actually a larger trading partner with the U.S. than China. And actually, that is correct. Mexico exports $334 billion. Well, actually, we export $334 billion of products to Mexico. We import $505 billion from them. Our collective trade imports and exports with China is $582 billion. Our trade with Mexico is almost $840 billion. So you don't really want to mess with a country like that because as a nation, as a standalone nation, Mexico is our largest trading partner. So if we got in a trade conflict with Mexico, that wouldn't turn out well. And before anyone says, oh, we can just invade them or blow them up, that usually doesn't have the kind of intended side effect you would think it would, especially on the economic side of things. That makes it a lot worse instead of a lot better, because then you're blowing up the factories that were making the goods that we were importing, or you're blowing up the people that were buying the goods that we were exporting to them. So it's not really a good line of business to do that either way. Really, the best move right now is to kind of just leave Mexico alone, to be entirely honest with y'all.
You know, it's a little bit deceiving though, this chart right here, because it shows China being a couple of notches down from Mexico. But if we're being honest here, China sends a lot of goods to Mexico and then they get shipped to the United States from Mexico. So I think they're counting some of the Chinese goods that are being sent to Mexico and then sold to the United States from Mexican soil as Mexican goods, but they're actually, some of them are actually Chinese goods. So that's the way I understand it. But of course, it's hard to track that because once the goods are sent to Mexico and technically they're on Mexican soil, then there's a whole thing about, is it truly Mexican goods or is it actually Chinese goods? And then it sort of gets murky. So that's a trick that China's been doing for some time, is doing that trick right there. But we also like genuinely trade a lot with Mexico. Like that's genuine as well.
But I would say at the same time, though, with that, like people are like saying that about Mexico, like that's a drawback. But I'm very sure that if you break open a lot of the quote unquote made in USA products, there's a lot of parts in them that are made in China and actually have that on them.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah, so like I think that's the same thing that's happening with Mexico. I would consider that to be a Mexican good at that point because if it's coming in through Mexico, it's most likely a subpart that was then finally assembled in Mexico and then transported across the border or something along those lines. Because like I know that they say that they do that with counterfeit goods, but counterfeit goods make up a very small part of our trade globally with anyone. So like that's a very niche amount, maybe tens of millions, and that's it. In total trade volume and imports, and it would not even get close to making up a billion, most likely.
Yeah. Also, do they track counterfeit goods? Like, how are they tracking that? Because I thought they were illegal.
I actually don't know, but I know that the one documentary that I saw about the whole thing about China is doing a loophole. They import the goods to Mexico, and then they just rip the tags off and they put a made in Mexico tag on it, and then they ship it up. And it was like, huh?
That part is true. I just didn't know they were tracking like counterfeit goods like that. I thought the counterfeit goods were like basically black market. Like nobody really knows where they're coming from or how many there are or anything.
From what I was hearing, that was apparently what they were doing to get them into America, is they were putting a made in Mexico thing on them and then shipping them in. I forgot how they got them past a whole counterfeit deal, but they said they were pulling that off. So, but then again, at the same time, that sort of trade, that makes up a very small amount, like wildly small, tens of millions probably. So nickel and dime sort of a deal at that point. But beyond that, Mexico isn't really a country that we want to mess with on the trade side of things because the fallout from that would be even far more extreme. It would almost be twice as bad as the fallout with the trade war that we were about to have with China. So imagine how bad that was, just from what it was going to look like and the fallout that happened as a result of that. Imagine that, but it actually happens with Mexico, and generally trade-wise, they're twice as large as China. That is not a good thing to get involved with right there at all. So I would generally say the best thing to do would be to leave Mexico alone. Because the number one thing, folks, that we have to remember is that we're trying to secure our interests, and that also includes our business interests. And while trying to deal with cartels and stuff is really great in ideas and paper, it's not really a good thing if we're destroying a whole bunch of small businesses in the process because they can't import or export anything. And also on top of that, all these people are going out of business. They're going broke. And then because they're going into depression, they're also getting hooked on drugs. And then the drug market's becoming even larger because there's more people who are destitute and have nothing to do but get hooked on drugs. So probably not the greatest thing for us to try and do is mess with the Mexicans right now, to be entirely honest. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to AF Kaplan, who said that Belgium supposedly has authorized their military to shoot these drones down over their airspace. And why won't they do that? And at Enforcer Matt, why are they holding back? And honestly, in my opinion, I would say they're likely holding back because they don't want to be the first ones to go down hard in case Russia responds. Me personally, though, my hunch is that Russia probably wouldn't even acknowledge it was their drone in the first place, so there probably wouldn't be a concern to even worry about. But I guess Belgium being in the hot seat feels a little bit different about that, and that's probably why they're not shooting them down, because they literally, like you mentioned, they literally just authorized their military to shoot them down, but now the moment of truth has arrived, and now Belgium has chickened out. So I would assume that maybe they're having cold feet about it, perhaps. Maybe that's the only thing I can say about it, really. It makes no sense. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would generally have to say that, in my opinion, I think that they're also scared as well. I would have to agree with Enforcer Matt on that, and that's probably why they haven't shot them down yet. That would be my assumption. But also, moving on into the next one here, I saw London Underwood 9833 say 100% most American goods and American-made goods are actually Chinese. Let's face it, everything is made in China, even steel and plastic or the chemicals used to make plastic. That is kind of true to an extent, but here's the thing that a lot of people just don't know or really don't understand, because it's not something that's taught a lot about how the world works these days, is that everything is made everywhere around the world. There is nothing that is exclusively made anywhere. Even inside of China, everything that is quote-unquote made in China isn't even 100% made in China. They're also importing a lot of parts or materials to be able to make what they're making in China. What happened, like, and this is how things work differently than they used to. Back in the day when things were made in the USA, shipping, or at least global shipping by ship, worked totally different. Back then it was called break bulk shipping, and that's when you had ships like, let me see here, let me go pull one of these up. Like these, like a Liberty ship, like the Jeremiah O'Brien or any of the others. But basically, to explain how these work, they have giant cargo holds, like these right here. They open up that panel and they just pack stuff in. So basically, these ships were like giant moving vans, and you would have all these guys down at the docks that were the moving crews that would load the ships up with, pretty much the packing boxes and unload them. They called them longshoremen, but basically we're going to call them the moving crews. And these moving crew guys worked in the hundreds on every single ship to load them and unload them. It was a long, bag-breaking, arduous, and expensive process. It made shipping things around the world incredibly expensive. And that's why back then, having something imported from overseas really meant a lot. When you said you had something imported from Germany, it had to be high-end. I mean, it had to cost a lot of money just to even get it here. And that was for everything. So there was this guy who came up with this idea of creating the shipping container. And the shipping container was a totally different way of doing things. And it pretty much got rid of all these moving crew guys down at the docks. Because a shipping container could be dropped off at a factory here in America. They load it up, they close it and lock it. And from then on, nobody has to unpack that shipping container and then pack it in anywhere else. It's pre-packed. All you do is stack them. You put them together and you send them off wherever you want to go on a specialized ship called the container ship. And nowadays they've exploded to unbelievable size, which is also another important thing about how this works nowadays. But it made the cost of transporting things around the world incredibly cheap, because you didn't have to pay all these moving crew guys by the hundreds for about a week on end every single time a ship came into port or came out of port. And you didn't have to unload and offload everything everywhere all the time endlessly at every single point of departure, which costs loads of money. So it makes it easy to ship stuff around the world. And it actually makes it so cheap and easy that it's most of the time easier to take advantage of a cheaper labor market in another foreign country than it is to just produce everything in America. So what they do is, like, for example, this is a pretty crazy deal. They will grow dates in California. They'll load those up on a ship, in a container, on a container ship, and they'll ship those all the way across the sea to Vietnam. They'll then process those dates in Vietnam, and then they'll pack them in Vietnam. And then they'll ship them back by ship again, all the way across the Pacific, all the way back to California. And that sounds like it's prohibitively expensive. But because of how easy the shipping container makes that process, it actually is cheaper to use the processing plant in Vietnam and have the dates processed and packed there than it would be to just do that in California, about 50 miles away, even with a giant ship travel in the middle of the trip. So that's generally how it works, and that's how everyone works, logistics and business these days. So there really is no such thing as a 100% truly singular nationally made product anymore. Everything is always going to have a product, a piece of an item in it that has been imported from somewhere else. And so it makes the idea of a made in USA product or a fully made in Britain product completely mythical these days. It's just impossible to do because of the economics of how the modern logistics system and manufacturing system works. But I hope that does address that well. It's something that a lot of people don't know about. And if you want to know more about it, there was a great book written by Eric Larison, if I'm not mistaken, called The Box, which is just the history of the shipping container, which really tells you about how the world's shipping and manufacturing completely changed because of the introduction of the shipping container. But I hope that does address that well. Really interesting story about how that all changed and how that works. But with that, it is time for us to move on into the next one.
All right. So our next one goes to Cam Nemesis. And he said, how, goodness, excuse me. He said, how do you think the U.S. should respond if Russia actually does nuke Ukraine? And I support the Ukrainian fight, but I would hate for us to get into a nuclear conflict for another nation. And on that one, that's a tricky one right there, Cam. I hope it doesn't come to that point. But with Russia and Russia getting desperate and also their economy going broke, you got to wonder if they're going to get that desperate because it seems like they're struggling badly, especially when you see literally their Cosmodrome getting shut down because they can't afford the electrical bill. So I would say how the U.S. should respond in that instant, I would say, I don't know, because you got to think about it like this. If the U.S. lets Russia nuke Ukraine, then what is preventing Russia from then invading a NATO country after that, and then nuking the NATO country if they don't surrender just like they did with Ukraine? Well, that's a huge risk, and it's a real risk too, because Putin has stated that he wants to take back more than just Ukraine. So you got to wonder, where do you draw the line? Do you say, we're not going to let Putin nuke Ukraine unless Russia also wants to get nuked in a counter attack by the United States? I'm a little bit on the fence about it, so I'm going to have to sort of take the cop-out answer. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, if the Russians nuke Ukraine, we have to respond. We're pretty much bound at that point to respond. A nuclear country just attacked a non-nuclear country over a conflict that could have been resolved, and it wasn't. And so they're going to decide to use the most extreme force possible to get their way and also threaten us with that force. That's something that we cannot stand for. If we stood for it and we backed off, that pretty much means that Russia can wield the nuclear option at any given moment, and they're always going to win the engagement, and that's something that we just cannot allow. Now, that's scary for a lot of people because that can get us all killed, having that kind of a mindset. But at the same time, is it better to die standing on our feet with what we have, or to pretty much live with nothing because we were too scared to stand up for something? That's really the kind of options we actually have here. And I would say that it'd be better to die on our feet with something to die for than it would be to live with nothing and just be happy with that. I wouldn't be happy with that personally. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next live chat question goes to Heavenly, who said, are we, the USA, getting any of Ukraine drone help about how to make or defend from these drones?
Yes, we actually are. They do give us a decent amount of advice and information these days, which is incredibly kind of them, and we are greatly appreciative of it. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Canada is Sovereign, who said, do you think NATO countries are worried they will reveal their air defense if they shoot down a drone?
Not necessarily, because all modern NATO air defense is portable and mobile, and so for that matter, if they fire, they move. They operate just like artillery, so they operate off of the shoot and scoot. They set up with their radar. They're stationary for now, but if they engage and shoot something down, they immediately pack up the radar and the actual firing systems, and then they just move them elsewhere out of the way. So there really is no way to expose them, because much like every modern artillery piece, which they are one of those. Once they fire, they move. So then they're out of harm's way. So I hope that is addressed the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Ryan, who said, any update on Pakistan and Afghanistan?
Generally that's died down. They actually got into a ceasefire. The conflict ended, and the ceasefire was managed by the Qataris. So the Qataris are really positioning themselves as a diplomatic hub for the world at this point, which is an incredibly interesting position that they find themselves in. And actually, I would have to say, very good statesmanship on their end from their leadership to be able to do such a thing, because it's putting Qatar into a very good position globally, speaking for their nation in particular. But with that, I hope that doesn't address that the best I can, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have one from Mr. Glock, who's there, who said, where are these drones in Belgium truly coming from?
We don't actually know. That's a good question. We're assuming that they're coming probably from the Baltic. That's at least what I'm assuming, and they're just flying across Germany and into Belgium. Because if they've made it all the way down to the area around Kaiserslautern, around Ramstein, which we already know about, and they came from the Baltic, that's a distance of 460 miles. To make a decline at Brogel, that's a distance of only 440 miles. So about the same distance. It wouldn't be that far to pull off to launch a drone and just fly it all the way across Germany into Belgium and then back. Because if they did that down at Ramstein, they could definitely do that in Belgium as well. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a question from the Grand Moff Putin once again, who said, if the Russians can manage to detonate a live nuclear test, then should the U.S. respond?
If the Russians detonate a live nuclear test, we pretty much would have to respond with our own live nuclear test, because we couldn't leave such a thing unanswered at that point. That is a flagrant nuclear escalation, and generally escalation from the Russians at least has to be met with equal escalation. That sounds counterintuitive. A lot of people would think that we would want to back off, but the thing is that if you back off with the Russians, they take that as a sign of weakness to take advantage of, and that's not a good thing at all. We do not want to work off of that kind of mindset. Any sort of an action of strength by the Russians have to be met with an equal action of strength by us. Then that actually makes them sit back and second guess everything and reconsider going further than what they've already done. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Kilroy Was Here, who said, what happens if they try to shoot down a drone and they hit one of the many civilian aircraft in the air, and bigger issue then, and need to clear civilian traffic first?
That's true. That could be a risk, but you could try and engage and shoot them down from a helicopter to where you're shooting more vertically towards the ground at the drone, and that would also allow you to have a backstop, hopefully not in a residential area, obviously, hopefully somewhere over a farm field somewhere, if that was a possibility. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And actually, this is our last question of the night, because we are fresh out except for one more.
And so with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And this one goes to Akumashin, who said, considering the losses that Russia has already accumulated over the course of the war, aren't they only able to sustain such losses for 2 more years? And it seems like their window is closing.
They probably can sustain these losses for a fairly long period of time, in my honest opinion, probably longer than 2 years. But the thing is that they financially and resource-wise cannot maintain these sorts of losses. You can have an unlimited number of men, but if you run out of guns and food to feed them with, you've lost the war already. So that's generally what we're more so waiting on and counting down on, is not really the loss of raw men. It's more so the loss of the equipment that the men would use or be paid with to fight the war. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And we've reached the end of tonight's stream, folks. And I gotta say, what a stream it was. 3.5 hours of Enforcer. Hopefully, a return back to form for many of y'all. And I hope that y'all have enjoyed tonight's show. We've been absolutely honored once again to be able to run it. And it's a wonderful and incredible thing to know that 12,000 people were here at the peak, and 80,000 people have watched this stream before it ended. That's a lot of people. And if y'all are new to the channel and y'all enjoyed it, Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon if you would like to. The link's in the description below. We got to thank everyone incredibly for enjoying this channel tonight, and we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world, and if there is enough news to make a short war video, I, the Enforcer, will be the one making that for all of y'all tomorrow. And so with that, we will see you all then. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Heram Slava, long live the Least Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, thank you all for joining us once again tonight on another night of the War News Stream. And we will see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern to cover the rest of the news throughout the day, and that short war video tomorrow midday if there is enough news to cover at that point in the day. But thank you all for joining us once again, and to all 80,000 plus people that were here by the end of the stream, we appreciate every single one of you for being here once again. But with that, Slava Ukraine, Heram Slava, get some rest, and good night.